Hey friends, welcome to the channel. So here's another interesting story of DEKU. What if DEKU have HyperNova healing quirk? I give full credits to authors in the starting of the video. If you want to see more stuff like this, then please subscribe to the channel and also do check the talented author of this captivating story. Bad Boy DEKU by the tattoo artist. Please search it on Google.so. Let's begin. In Midoriya Izuku's class at Aldera Junior High, we witness a blonde teacher talking to the kids about their future job goals one day. A stack of papers was in his hands. Since you're all third years, it's time for you to think seriously about your future, the instructor stated. The teacher said, tossing the career plan handouts into the air with complete indifference, I'll pass handouts for your future career plans now, but you're all pretty much planning to get into the hero course, right? Then there was a burst of applause in the classroom, followed by an oddly amazing show of individual student peculiarities. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, but using your powers at school is against the rules. A small child with dark green hair named Midoriya Izuku was looking languidly out the window with his head propped up on his arm. Izuku was exhausted, as he always was from his training in martial arts. Aldera Junior High was fortunate for Izuku to have a judo and karate club. The boy's healing peculiarity made it easy for him to pick up the combat styles without worrying about doing too much damage to his body. Sensei. Izuku snapped out of his reverie at the sound of a specific voice. Kachan, you asshole, please stop starting this again, Izuku smirked to himself. One of the best students at Aldera High, Bakugo Katsuki, a lad with blonde hair, said, don't lump us all in the same group. I'm not gonna be stuck at the bottom with the rest of these rejects, as his feet rested on his desk and his head slouched back. Abruptly, the other students burst into a chorus of objections directed at the pale blonde. That was uncalled for, Katsuki. Yeah. Katsuki smirked mockingly and stated, you all should shut up like the extras you are. Oh, if I remember correctly, you want to go to UA High, right, Bakugo-kun? The instructor responded. The blonde's sly smile expanded into a broad smile. That national school? It was in the top 0.2% this year, you know. Their acceptance rate is always really low too. The fact that Katsuki wished to join at the top hero course offering school in Japan stunned and amazed the majority of the pupils. But Izuku only chuckled to himself. After all, he was going to join in the same school. Katsuki leapt on top of his desk and exclaimed, that's exactly why you guys are just extras. I aced the mock test. I'm the only one at this school who could possibly get into UA. I'll definitely surpass All Might and become the next #1 hero. I'll get my name written down on the list of top earners. Katsuki nearly fell off his desk as the teacher said, but that also reminds me, Bakugo-kun, you came in second in the mock test. I forgot to announce that Midoriya got the best score. Also, aren't you planning to get into UA as well, Midoriya-kun? The students exclaimed, no way. Upon learning that the resident bad boy had received the highest score in the UA practice exam. He even broke out into laughter to further hurt Katsuki's feelings. Yeah, that's accurate. I even finished 15 minutes early. Izuku grinned at his pal with blonde hair. Who's the extra now, Bakahatsu? A play on words. Baka means idiot. It sounds almost like Bakuhatsu, which means explosion. Leaping off his desk, Katsuki walked briskly up to Izuku's desk. Katsuki murmured in a tone that was dangerously quiet, Oi, DEKU. The fact that the resident hothead and resident bad boy were in the same class as them was one thing, but when they started to act like brothers, the kids swallowed a tiny bit of terror. These two guys were known to be fierce rivals outside of school who stirred up problems wherever they went, but it was extremely rare to witness them fight. Izuku's healing trait prevented Katsuki from hurting him. Additionally, they were constantly perceived as having irritated one another due to their negative attitudes. Izuku received a fierce look from Katsuki, who returned the glare. Grinning, Katsuki put Izuku in a headlock and began giving him a noogie. Bastard, he called him. Why didn't you tell me you took the mock test, you asshole? I thought you didn't want to get into UA. Izuku laughed and pushed Katsuki aside in a joking manner. I was gonna surprise you, but, whatever. At least you know now. After giving each other a brother fist bump, they laughed it off. The class fell silent as a result of this, so that's how it is. They're actually friends. Didn't see that one coming. Phew, at least they didn't start a fight. Midoriya Izuku is a naughty lad with some strong points while occasionally acting in an unpleasant manner. His healing peculiarity had given him a vicious disposition. To a lesser degree, the ability to bounce back from setbacks has shaped our youthful hero into the person he is today. However, this mentality was even worse a few years ago. Izuku got into his first fight at the age of 10 when he was teased about his hero journals by a bully. Izuku was being teased by the bully, who also grabbed his notepad and tore it to pieces in front of him. The bully's peculiarity enabled him to make his clothing more durable. The boy was wearing gloves, as you can probably assume. Izuku delivered his first punch out of rage at seeing his notepad and all of his hard work damaged. Izuku was offended by the bully's age, which was around 3 years older than him. The bully retaliated by using his peculiarity. The punch struck Izuku square in the face and even caused a sizable gash on his cheek to bleed. When the bully saw the blood, his face lit up with triumph, but he was taken aback when the blood began to flow back into the wound, which eventually healed. The bully was unhappy to see that Izuku was not looking too bad for wear while he was getting weaker and more exhausted as they continued to trade blows. Izuku took his bully down with a final blow. It marked the beginning of Midoriya Izuku's journey towards delinquency. Izuku's inner fire was ignited by that first battle. The adrenaline rush he experienced during the fight was almost like a drug, and as a result, the child began looking for fights on a weekly basis. In less than a year, the base finally expanded from weekly to daily. After turning 12, Izuku became a full-fledged delinquent. Whenever and anywhere he could, he would start fights and occasionally even try to take on bigger opponents. He ultimately became so tired of fighting teenagers who were kept back by peculiar restriction regulations that he even started looking for fights against villains. As you would imagine, over the period of 2 years, Izuku honed his fighting skills. However, he lacked a distinct fighting technique, instead relying on his ability to bite, kick, and punch his way to victory. Izuku had once beaten a criminal who had a strange power to convert his fingers into sharp points, but the police had arrested him after Izuku defeated him. He received accolades for his assistance in apprehending a villain, but he also received criticism for his careless actions. On that day, his mother, Midoriya Inko, also found out about her son's delinquent behavior. She ultimately chastised her son for his misbehavior and fighting. This continued for a while as well. Izuku would initiate fights and then get caught in them, to which Inko would chastise him for it. That next evening, the youngster became weary and screamed at his mother for reprimanding him. To his mother's surprise, Izuku screamed, "Will you shut up? I have a healing quirk, it's not like they can hurt me or anything." "But Izuku, you really shouldn't have been out fighting in the first place," Inko expressed with intense concern. "You already have a track record and the police have warned that if they catch you starting another fight, you'll be put on juvenile probation." "TCH, whatever," Izuku replied hastily, "I'm outta here." At that point, Izuku bolted off the flat. "Izuku, wait," exclaimed Inko, sprinting behind her kid. Unbeknownst to Izuku at the time, those 2 words would be the last he heard his mother say for a very long time. Izuku was sobbing on his knees by the side of a hospital bed the next day. His mother was comatose when she slept on that bed. Later in the afternoon, with the declaration of Izuku and Katsuki as UA, the green-haired bad kid from Aldera Junior High, is a frequent sight among applicants. He reads and flips through his notebook while strolling under a bridge on his way home from school. The young boy was reviewing some notes he had taken recently about Mount Lady, a new hero who sprang out of nowhere, and Kamui Woods, a rising star. Studying and analyzing heroes and their eccentricities was one of his hobbies. Izuku's quirk was a healing factor, therefore the best he could do to compensate for its lack of flashiness, as most oddities were commonly termed, was to acquire martial arts and other fighting skills. Izuku reasoned that in order to defeat his opponents, he would need to strike twice as hard because he could withstand a blow. However, Izuku realized that he could use more than just martial arts and hand-to-hand fighting techniques in a battle. He even decided to learn how to use weapons. His best weapons were a pair of nunchucks he purchased from a hobby shop and a bow staff. Even though Izuku was no longer a delinquent, he continued to act and behave like one because he had formed a somewhat bad boy-like character early in life. Just as Izuku shut his notepad, he detected a slight gurgling noise. Then he heard metal clanking, and out of a nearby manhole sprang a monster that looked like muck. Izuku took a step back and shouted, "Oh shit, what the hell are you?" "Good, a meat shield," cried the sludge villain. "Just what I needed to get away from that guy." The greenette attempted to evade, but he was caught and ultimately suffocated by the sludge villain as he lunged forward in an attempt to capture Izuku. Izuku swiftly used his quick thinking to retrieve an electric stun baton from inside his uniform coat. Izuku wondered if he would use this thing today. He thought to himself as he searched for the switch on the baton. "This is going to hurt." The sludge villain let forth a wild laugh. "Don't worry, kid. This'll only hurt for a few seconds. I never would have imagined that that guy would come here. Yes, this is going to hurt, but not for me, you filthy turd." After managing to free his arm, Izuku drove his stun baton into the side of the sludge villain's liquid body. The villain let out a garbled scream as a few thousand volts of electricity shot through both of their bodies. Izuku was largely unaffected by the voltage, but the sludge villain exploded due to the shock, splattering green slime all over Izuku and the passageway. Izuku was still alright even though he had fallen to the ground, was smoldering, and had twitched from the electricity coursing through him. Izuku got up and noticed that the tunnel and himself were both covered in sludge. Izuku wiped the mud off his face and muttered, "Great. I'm covered in what can only amount to a shit-based quirk." But that was easy. Mutation quirks that turn the body into a liquid mass can easily succumb to electricity. I can only assume that ice or extreme cold also has the same effects. A pretty tall and powerful blonde man emerged out the same manhole that the sludge villain had just moments before, as Izuku was still babbling. The man was both confused and in awe at what he was seeing. Astonishment that the child had dealt with the sludge monster and perplexity that the child was mumbling about sludge, water, ice, and electricity. The man yelled, "Hey kid," startling Izuku out of his reverie. "Did you do all this?" Izuku turned to face the person who had shouted out to him, intending to just dismiss them with a, "Yeah, so?" But to his complete amazement, the man was merely. With astonishment, Izuku murmured, "All Might. The #1 hero, he's really here." All Might remarked, "That's right, kid. I am here." Oh my, thought Izuku. In person, he appears entirely different. All Might was in front of Izuku, his personal hero and the inspiration behind his desire to be a hero, and he had no idea what to do. "I'll just say, kid, you did a fine job subduing this villain," said the mighty. "I've been after this evildoer for a while now. I'd like to give you my thanks. And now, I should clean up this mess and take him to holding facility." Then All Might reached into his side pockets and took out 2 Pepsi bottles. Izuku murmured as he reached for the second bottle, "Here, let me help." All Might handed Izuku the bottle and remarked, "I like that helpful attitude of yours, kid. Here you go." Much to the greenette's delight, All Might then signed Izuku's notepad after defeating the slimy villain. All Might patted bottles in his pockets and said, "All right then, I need to take this guy to the police. See you again on the other side of the screen." Then All Might squatted and extended his legs, getting ready for a valiant leap off. Izuku questioned, "Wait already?" "Experts are always battling adversaries in the passage of time," stated All Might. Izuku thought, his thoughts racing back to his mother, "Wait, I need to ask you something." After saying, "Well then," All Might sprang many meters into the air. "I'm counting on your continued support." "Wait," All Might said, feeling something on his left thigh. He turned to find the young lad who had earlier assisted him in defeating the sludge evil clinging to life. Hey, 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 hey. Leave go. Kid? All Might said, attempting to shove the child away with his hand on his face. Your fanaticism is too much. Izuku cried, holding on even harder. I can't, we're way too high up. Even though I have a healing quirk, I'd rather not test my limits right now. I might actually die if I fall from a height like this. Realizing he had nearly made a mistake, All Might hesitated. That's true. I need to ask you something, All Might. It's really important. The boy's determined expression caused the number one hero to back down. All right, but we'll need to find a safe place to land. Close your eyes and mouth. The boy followed instructions. The hero then changed the course of his landing after spotting a high building nearby. Then All Might gave a slight cough, and a sizable drop of blood came out of his mouth's side. Izuku got off as they touched down on the building and collapsed to his knees. The child shook his head and replied, I'm a complete idiot sometimes. That was intense. With his hands at his sides, All Might faced the town and remarked, good grief. If you talk to the people downstairs, I'm sure they'll let you down from here. I'm sorry, but I am seriously out of time. I really must go. Izuku got up and called out, wait, please, no, I cannot wait. But Izuku then thought back to the event that had happened a few years prior. The youngster witnessed his mother lying on a hospital bed, hooked up to multiple equipment to maintain her life. The doctor said, I'm sorry, young man, at that moment. But your mother has fallen into a coma. It's unlikely she'll wake up anytime soon. Izuku whispered, Mom, his eyes welling with tears. This is all my fault, I'm so sorry. Izuku straightened, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. My mother fell into a coma because of me. I was so stupid and reckless at the time. I just wanted to know. All Might ceased to move. I just wanted to know, can a guy who put his own mother in the hospital still become a hero? It was ineffective. Izuku's face was already wet with tears. Then All Might turned to face the small child. Due to me, Izuku uttered. Because of how stupid and reckless I was being, because I got mad at her that one time, my mum, she. Your mother? Inquired All Might. Izuku was wiping tears from his eyes when he opened them and saw something that almost permanently scarred him. I really want to become a hero, so I can atone for what I did. I want to show my mom, when she wakes up, that I can become a cool hero like you. Someone who saves people with a fearless smile. A thin man, resembling a skeleton, stood in front of Izuku. Izuku fell backwards and cried out in amazement, Who the hell are you? Wait, up until now, a fake? You're not All Might, you must be a fake, you're like a skeleton. I am All Might, Gah, the man exclaimed, spitting blood out of his mouth. Izuku let out a shocked cry. No way, that can't be you. You know how guys at the pool are always flexing their bodies and making poses? Replied All Might, it's kinda like that. Izuku cried, what the hell kind of an explanation is that? It can't be, what happened to you? Why are you like this? You're All Might, right? The hero saves people with a fearless smile? A sigh escaped All Might. He said, a fearless smile, huh? Before sitting down. Now that you've seen me like this, Shonen, I'd like to ask you to keep quiet about it. You can't say anything online either, even if by accident. Izuku replied, all right. What the youngster saw next took him by surprise. Then, All Might raised his shirt to show off a horrifying scar over his upper left abdomen. I received this injury from an enemy's attack 5 years ago. Half my respiratory organs were destroyed and I lost my whole stomach. I became emaciated from countless repeated surgeries and the after effects. Because of all that, I'm now limited by time to the point where I can only maintain my buff form and do hero work for about 3 hours each day. 5 years ago, Izuku recalled the past. That was when you fought against Toxic Chainsaw, wasn't it? Each Might gave a nod. The hero continued, saying that even with the wound, he would carry on with his work since, after all, he was the symbol of peace and would never be intimidated by evil. He clarified that he would always be a beacon of hope, a rock that would fend off evil, and an inspiration to other heroes, regardless of the price. Experts consistently jeopardize their lives, stated All Might. If you're unsure of yourself, it's almost impossible to take up a hero's mantle. Doubts will always hinder you in the line of work. Izuku cast his gaze to his feet. My uncle, he told me the same thing, not word for word, but he told me that any doubt I have will turn against me in the end. Your uncle is correct, declared All Might. Now, you said that your mother was in a coma. Would you care to elaborate further? Izuku slid his eyes shut. I was 12 years old at the time. We got into a fight one night. Because of my healing quirk, I became really arrogant. I could take a hit and dish out twice as much force. Because of all that, I got into fights with kids my age all the time. My mom would always tell me otherwise and scold me for what I did. One night I came back home from a really tough fight, and my mom scolded me like usual. I got tired of the scolding that night and yelled back. I ran away and she ran after me. Izuku was now. She followed me all the way to the street, and when I tried to run across the road, she followed after me and she... Izuku clenched his chest. She got hit by a car. All Might got to his feet and approached the tiny child, placing his hand on his shoulder. Shonen, declared All Might. With one punch, I can level an entire city. At best, or worst, I could sink an entire island with my strength. I used to think that no one should have that kind of power, but I soon learned to control it, and I use this power every day to help those who are in need. Even in his malnourished state, Izuku exuded a strong sense of justice and heroism as he looked at All Might. You can be a great hero, especially with your healing quirk, the mighty stated. I can't really say anything about the situation concerning your mother, but if you wish to atone for your sins in the past, take your mistake and use that as an example to do good. Unable to look All Might in the eye, Izuku remarked, but can I really become hero? I used to have a track record of delinquency and vandalism. Your past doesn't define your future. Like I said, Shonen, use what you have for good and to help those in need. Izuku looked at the floor, attempting to come up with something to say or do. He still harbored concerns, but he truly wanted to be a hero. Then Izuku saw what was in All Might's pockets. Wait, where are the bottles? All Might said, what? And reached to feel his side pockets, only to discover to his astonishment that the bottles holding the sludge villain were disappeared. They must have fallen out when you grabbed onto me. Panicking, Izuku remarked, but that was over the Tatooine shopping district. Oh man, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to. All Might smiled and said, it's okay, Shonen. I made sure to cap the bottles as tight as possible. I can just run over and collect the bottles. What could go wrong? Boom! At that moment, someone far away heard a huge explosion. Turning around, All Might and Izuku saw heavy, black smoke billowing from the adjacent shopping center. Then the two exchanged a horrified glance with one another. Izuku and All Might were sprinting to the location where the smoke was visible. Izuku remarked, shit, I really messed up. It's all my fault. If I hadn't grabbed onto you when you jumped, this wouldn't have happened. All Might remarked, no time for that now, Shonen. Let's just hope no one is in danger. A large group of people had gathered and were discussing the several heroes battling a sludge evil when they arrived on the scene. As anticipated, he succeeded in getting away. All Might muttered, I just hope they can take control of the situation before it gets any worse. But when All Might learned that the villain had captured a prisoner and was utilizing the peculiarity of the captive to hold the heroes at bay, his hopes were dashed. Izuku had become a member of the Crown and even succeeded in forcing his way to the front. In an attempt to get a closer look, he noticed other heroes he wasn't too sure about, like Death Arms, Backdraft, and Kamui Woods. According to what he could gather from the circumstances alone, Kamui Woods was assisting in the evacuation of any residents trapped inside the danger zone. Backdraft was too preoccupied putting out neighboring fires, and Death Arms was unable to unleash his full strength for fear of injuring hostages. But Midoriya Izuku froze in shock at what he witnessed next. He was startled to realize that the captive was none other than Bakugo Katsuki, his best buddy, when he turned to face the villain and could just make out the hostage's blonde hair. Katsuki's expression betrayed his desperation. Izuku knew from his previous meeting with the sludge villain that the villain was trying to forcefully enter Katsuki's body through his mouth, smothering his comrade. Izuku felt something inside of him suddenly crack. Izuku shouted, "Kachan!" as he dove into the battle, defying the other heroes' orders to hold back. "I'm not going to lose my best friend today. I almost lost my mother that night." Izuku examined the scene while picking up a metal pipe that was close by. "Disorient your opponent and aim for any vital areas," Izuku ordered, focusing on the villain's eyes after doing a brief examination. Lifting his arms, Izuku executed a sideways arc with the pipe, striking the sludge villain's eye. With a roar of pain, the villain released Katsuki from his hold. Izuku saw his opportunity and dropped the pipe, starting to pull away at the sludge. "Hold on, you bastard, I'll get you out." Katsuki shouted back, "Well, don't just talk about it. Get me the hell out of this." "Hold on," Izuku commanded. "Get a supernova ready." Katsuki squeezed his right arm's muscles and grinned. After liberating a sufficient portion of his upper body, Katsuki directed his palms straight towards the sludge villain. "Die." Katsuki let off a tremendous explosion that would have destroyed him if his friend hadn't been holding him back. Only half of the sludge monster was destroyed by the explosion, though, as he shrieked and lifted a slimy arm in wrath after surviving the blast. "You again. This time I'll just kill you, brats." Izuku and Katsuki waited for the blow to come, but it never did. All Might called the sludge villain's strike pathetic, as he parried it off. "I really am pathetic. Even though I encouraged you by saying you could become a hero, I am truly ashamed that I myself am not living up to the standards I instilled into you shonen." "All Might!" exclaimed the sludge villain. "All Might!" screamed, "Pros like me are always risking their lives for a better cause." And pulled back his right arm. Detroit smash. After All Might's punch had subsided, the police, heroes, and general public were all in disbelief at the number one hero's sheer strength. Right next to All Might, Katsuki and Izuku gazed in wonder at their idol. Abruptly, the rain began. "Rain. Don't tell me it's from the wind pressure just now." "Yeah, it must caused an updraft." Death Arms gazed up at All Might through the clouds. "That punch, he made clouds." With just his fist he changed the weather. The people screamed praises as the unwavering symbol of peace, All Might, rose tall despite his wounds. When the children were examined later, Katsuki had some little scratches and bruises, but Izuku was largely unhurt. He gave the arriving medics an explanation of his healing peculiarity. After that, the pros took their time complimenting Katsuki on his incredible eccentricity and reprimanding Izuku for being so careless while simultaneously applauding Izuku for leaping to save his comrade. Death Arms remarked to Izuku, "That was really stupid of you to just jump in there, kid. Even if you did have a healing quirk. But, hey, at least you saved your friend." Izuku turned to face Katsuki, who sent him a sardonic smirk before slapping him across the head with a shake of his head. "Yeah, even if you tell this bonehead not to, he'd do it anyway." Izuku remarked, "Hey, at least this makes us even." All Might merely observed the scene from his position. "That boy could be the answer I've been searching for. And he wouldn't have to worry about the backlash thanks to that mending quirk of his. Shinin, I hope you still aspire to be a hero." Izuku and Katsuki were heading home later that day. "That was really amazing," Katsuki remarked. "Being praised by heroes and getting to see All Might in action. On top of both of us getting into UA this day couldn't get any better, right?" "Yes," Izuku answered. "Not counting nearly being suffocated to death by that slime, this day was awesome." The adolescents arrived to a crossroads after some time spent wandering and conversing. "Well, this is how I am," Katsuki remarked. "I better go. I don't want the old hag yelling at me again." "Certainly," Izuku laughed. "See ya tomorrow then." After Katsuki was out of sight, Izuku continued to walk till I am here. Izuku was startled and fell backward. All Might, what are you doing here? I thought you were swamped by the press." All Might laughed aloud. "It was easy for me to get away from them because I am all Ga." "Maybe." All Might deflated and Izuku yelled. Izuku let out a shout, clutching his chest. "Couldn't you at least give a little warning before that happens? I'm too young to die of a heart attack." With a smirk, All Might looked at Izuku and wiped the blood from his chin. Shonen, I knew you had it in you. Back there with the sludge villain, you displayed something that not many heroes possess. You were truly heroic. With a sidelong glance, Izuku asked, how can you say that? Because of me, Kachan got hurt. You were nearly blamed for the villain attack. I got in the way of your work, and what's worse is that. As he interrupted the boy's digression, All Might remarked, that doesn't really matter right now, Shonen. Because you ran in there with almost no regard for yourself, because you simply wanted to save your friend, you reminded me of what true heroism is. Because of what you did, I was able to act. With his head up, Izuku turned to face All Might. Top heroes have stories about them that go back to as early as their high school days, stated the mighty. And most of those stories have one thing common. Their bodies moved before they even had a chance to think. Izuku was starting to understand what All Might was attempting to express when he heard this. He also recalled his mother's words to him a few years before to the occurrence at the same moment. You have a wonderful quirk, Izuku, and with it you'll become a wonderful hero as well. One day, I know you'll make me proud. But right now I'm already proud of you, because I know you'll do great things in the future. When Izuku emerged victorious in his first fistfight, those comments were muffled. He had become skilled in combat, and in the process, his conceit gradually grew to the point where he began to dismiss the concerns of his own mother. That was true for you, too, wasn't it? Izuku said, yeah, with tears streaming down his cheeks. Izuku never got over the day he saw his mother's lifeless body lying on the ground. He was sorry he had ever screamed at her, sorry he had disregarded his mother's concerns, sorry he had acted in such a way, and sorry he had spent so much time trying to make things better. That's the reason, Shinin, stated All Might. I deem you worthy to inherit my power. Izuku's head shot up. Wait, what? Izuku remembered All Might's words as he gazed at the enormous heaps of trash that covered the Dagoba Municipal Beach. He wasn't sure if he should feel bad about his choice or accept it and move on, as the hero advised. Although the youngster had already completed community service, he believed that this was not possible. Izuku learned the value of helping others from his uncle, a martial arts instructor, even if you didn't get anything in return. It was more important that you act from the goodness of your heart than that you did so to gain attention. Smirking, Izuku cracked his knuckles. All right, let's get this place cleaned up. That was the start of the next 10 terrible months of Midoriya Izuku's life. Izuku had completed ahead of schedule, even though the beach was covered in mountains of trash and debris. After just 8 months, the beach was pristine and devoid of any debris. The majority of the leftover debris was gathered at the top observation platform. The 14-year-old youngster who was standing atop a pile of scrap metal and screaming uncontrollably at top of his lungs left All Might speechless. Hey, 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 exclaimed All Might as he peered outside and became even more astounded by what he saw. He even cleaned outside of where I told him to. Seriously. There's not even a speck of dust left. Seriously. He finished in only 8 months. More than perfectly. Oh my goodness. After that, Izuku leapt to sit atop a refrigerator. Hey, All Might, how's that for, worthy to inherit your power? Excellent job, Midoriya Shonen, All Might exclaimed, giving the young man a high five. You surprised me, you entertainer you. Teenagers are amazing. Look at this. As Izuku sprang from his perch, All Might took out his phone and displayed a photo of the little boy from 8 months prior. The image depicted a short, stocky child who was having difficulty moving a big piece of rubbish. This is, All Might remarked, that's you, 8 months ago. You did good. You really did. The mirage of it is finally just barely visible, but you certainly become a suitable vessel. I really thought it would take at least 10 months, but I can't. You actually forced your bodies so hard. Hey, huff with my healing, Izuku remarked while struggling to regain consciousness. I can huff tear my muscles apart without huff any worry. Izuku's body had become more and more strong. His pectorals, abs, biceps, and even the trapezius muscles on his shoulders had thickened, giving him wider shoulders. His shirt was hanging off his right shoulder. The young man, who had previously stood at 166 centimeters, 5 feet 5 inches, was able to grow a little taller during his training regimen, reaching a height of 179 centimeters, 5 feet 8 inches. Even so, I feel like I'm cheating, Izuku grinned. You're doing all this for me, All Might, I'm too blessed. All Might gave a little chuckle. Your humble attitude is wonderful. I just wish I could work on your bad boy habits. Well, never mind about that for now. And All Might took a single strand of his blonde hair and pulled. Take that to heart. This is power you earned because of your own effort. Something that you receive because you're lucky and something that you were given because you were recognized as different as essence, I was once informed. Izuku bowed his head in comprehension as he glanced up at All Might and then down at his more muscular frame. All Might said, now then, holding out his palm and placing the hair strand between his thumb and index finger. Eat this. What the hell is going on? Izuku scrunched up, www what? It doesn't really matter what it is as long you ingest some of my DNA, the Mighty said. Whoa, Izuku exclaimed, raising his arms to defend himself. I'm not putting your hair in my mouth. It's too different from what is imagined. This isn't what I signed up for. All Might said, I said it doesn't matter, in a combative manner. Just eat the hair. All Might tried to force the hair down his throat, but Izuku shouted at him. Get your follicles away from me. All Might eventually succeeded in getting Izuku to consume the hair strand. As Izuku stretched his muscles, I don't feel any different, he declared. Did it work? And bletch. Asterisk hair tastes sour. Why does hair taste sour? I imagine it did, but you probably know how the digestive system works. Give it some time, said the Mighty. You can just go home now and take a rest. We'll start your training tomorrow. Izuku turned to face his luggage after giving a nod. Gazing out at the sunlight over the horizon, All Might thought to himself, you'll degrade one day shonen. You actually managed to shave 2 entire months off my training plan. The superhero closed his eyes and remembered how he had used the quirk straight out of the bat the first time he had acquired One for All. It makes me wonder if his healing quirk can withstand the setback. Then, All Might was startled out of his thoughts by a loud thump. Glancing back, he noticed that Izuku had collapsed near a refrigerator. All Might laughed and went to see how the youngster was doing. I guess you really did push yourself too far. I should get you home. You deserve to rest after doing all this. Izuku would start receiving instruction over the next 2 months on how to use One for All correctly. When Izuku returned to the shore, All Might appeared as he truly was. The bad lad had previously studied a variety of martial arts styles, having picked them up from his uncle as well as the few local dojos that continued to teach the art in order to improve a person's fighting skills or abilities. You're running late, shonen, exclaimed All Might. I appreciate that your uncle has been taking care of you this far, but you still need to work on your punctuality. Yeah, Izuku waved his hand in response. I'll get to that later, first I need to learn how to use the power you gave me. You're right, All Might affirmed. All you have to do is switch to muscle form and let loose a powerful shockwave that flew directly over the open ocean. Just clench your buttocks and yell this inside your heart. Smash! Exclaimed All Might. This demonstration of the might of All Might would have amazed Izuku, but... You want me to clench? Izuku asked, his expression expressionless. My ass? Number 2. That was novel, and maybe this concept wasn't too awful. If you think this tale was nice, please leave a review, like it, and follow it. All that good stuff. I will discuss the pairings in the upcoming chapter. Although Deku didn't seem like much of a bad kid in this chapter, you'll see more of him in the chapters to follow. You'll see that as the main plot develops, but keep in mind that he's attempting to become a hero and won't always be an ass. However, these are just sneak peeks at upcoming chapters. Tenya couldn't take Izuku's bad boy attitude. After all, he'd already had to cope with Katsuki, so he was scared and extremely concerned about the youngster. Tenya witnessed Izuku argue verbally with some teenagers from a different school one day while she was accompanying him home. Tenya thought, I should stop doing this. He can fight, but he really shouldn't be fighting in this manner. It merely contradicts the ideal of a hero. After growing weary of the arguments, one of the older children simply grabbed Izuku by the collar of his uniform. "All right, I heard enough. You're supposed to be tough, but all I see is that you're all just talk." Izuku gave the big teen a condescending look and said, "Oh really?" before hitting his forehead. The larger youngster remained motionless, but his pals began to laugh and chuckle. The big lad observed that the cut on the Izuku's forehead was beginning to close and commented, "Healing quirk huh?" To Izuku's slight amazement, the man's head and complete body had turned to stone. "That ain't gonna work." Channeling one for all at 25% into his forehead, Izuku grinned once again. "Okay, give it another go." Headbutt smash. Izuku smacked his forehead once more, sending the bigger boy flying several feet away. "Okay, buddy," Izuku responded, taking the offender's hand. "What's the big idea picking on these girls?" The offender turned to face the person who had touched his hand and hissed, "Haru." To the delinquent's surprise, he encountered an angry face, one he never would have imagined running into again. In response to his question, "Who the hell do you, DEKU?" Demon Izuku. Izuku released the man's hand and scowled at the miscreants. "Yeah, it's me, now let me ask again." Mina, Tsuyu, and Ochako watched in disbelief as the 5 offenders started to tremble, fearing for their life. "What's the big idea picking on these girls?" Izuku addressed the stunning young girl in front of him. "Look, I appreciate the gestures, but why are you doing this for me?" The girl stated, "I just wanted to repay the favor." "Favor? What favor?" "For when you saved me," the girl said, tucking her jet black hair shyly behind her ear. "Remember that small girl? The one with short hair? The girl who was lost?" Izuku tried to gather his thoughts by cupping his chin and tapping his lips. And that's when it occurred to him. "Wait," he murmured, glancing up and down at the girl. "That girl was you? That tiny runt of a girl was you?" The girl blushed a little bit and grinned. "Yes, Deku-sama." Izuku cried, blushing as well, "Don't call me that, it's embarrassing enough as it is." It was February 25th, 3:30 p.m., and Midoriya Izuku was riding his bike towards a specific location. Izuku had been visiting Musutafu General Hospital every day for a while. His mother had been put on life support following the event. Izuku was a 12-year-old delinquent at the time. 2 years later, at the age of 14, he was on his way to becoming a hero. Izuku was always saying hello to the nurses working at the front desk before heading to his mother's hospital room, as we can see. Since he began training with All Might, Izuku's courteous demeanor has significantly improved, albeit it still needs some minor adjustments. Midoriya Inko was placed on a hospital bed in a specially designated hospital room, with numerous wires and tubes linked to her body to monitor her condition via a variety of life support devices. She was conscious but in a vegetative state. The heart monitor near her bedside beeped incessantly every few seconds. After a long moment of hesitation, Izuku approached the bed and took a seat in one of the neighboring chairs. "Hey mum," Izuku grinned and said. "I'm finally doing it. I'll be taking the UA entrance exam tomorrow. I'll finally become a hero like I always wanted to when I was still a kid." Izuku cast his gaze down to his mother's expressionless face, waiting for her to make some sort of move. Something. Even a twitch. He tightened his grip on his mother's hand. Izuku flexed his right arm and added, "Well, I've been training really hard for the past 10 months. But not just with Uncle Kojira, I've also been training with a really great hero. I'm already proud of you, because I know you'll do great things in the future." Izuku rose up and leaned in to give his mother a quick kiss on the forehead. "Mom, I promise, I'll become a great hero too one day and I'll make things up to you. You can count on that. I promise Mom, I'll really make it up to you." February 26th, at 6 in the morning, Akatani Kojira asked his nephew, who was finishing his third bowl of katsudon, "Izuku-kun, are you ready for the exam?" Izuku gave a nod. "I could barely sleep at all last night. I feel so full of energy." Akatani Kojira was a massive guy, standing at 191 centimeters, 6 feet 3 inches, with a strong frame like that of All Might. Since a means of making up for their perceived weakness, Kojiro, a professional hero, taught martial arts to other heroes with weaker peculiarities. This was not unusual since many pro heroes engaged in martial arts and other fighting styles to obtain the upper hand against a range of antagonists. Because Kojiro is Inko's closest surviving relative and a cousin on her father's side, Kojiro also assumed legal guardianship of Izuku following Inko's coma. Because of Izuku's healing powers, Kojiro even took it upon himself to teach his nephew his own kind of martial arts. The youngster picked things up quickly, and at times Kojiro found himself unable to keep up with Izuku's limitless energy. Izuku hardly ever has to take a nap following a sparring session because of the healing element. Regarding Midoriya's father, not much is known about him at this time. The only thing we do know is that he works overseas to support Izuku financially. Kojiro chuckled while he gulped down his coffee. Full of energy, even after your morning jog, after all the training you went through, I'm sure you'll make it. Well, I'm going to leave now, the man stated, reaching for his bike helmet and coat. Remember, I'll be gone for the week, so stay out of trouble. Please promise me that. Izuku nodded after looking down at the empty bowl in front of him. I promise. Besides, I'm not the same as I used to be. I'm gonna be a great hero one day. Kojiro grinned. Your mother will be so proud of you, she'd literally be crying a river. Seeing how emotional his own mother was, Izuku grinned at this. The young kid with green hair heard the front door close as he turned to face the table. Izuku's face was filled with tears as soon as his uncle departed. I swear, Mom. Izuku got up and went to his room. After taking off his tracksuit jacket, he glanced in the mirror. His height was still rising, even if his strong build had peaked at this point. With just 1 month of training under his belt, All Might helped him grow from 179 centimeters, 5 feet 8 inches, to 182 centimeters, 5 feet 10 inches. However, after another month of training, he didn't grow much taller, therefore it must have likewise been his height peak. Izuku added, I guess I've hit my peak for now, I'll just cut back on training for a while. I'm pretty sure that's a good idea, while doing a brief full body flex. All Might himself said I could take a breather. But, I should get ready for the exam. At such a young age, Izuku was greatly inspired by heroes, particularly after watching the film of All Might saving so many lives. He would never grow tired of watching the movie and would do so repeatedly. Since her kid was so fascinated with heroism, his mother thought that this was a terrific way for the little boy to grow up and that he would definitely go for heroics in the near future. As a result, Inko raised her kid by pushing him to follow in the footsteps of heroes, just like any other mother would. For the majority of parents during this period, being a hero was a generally embraced and highly supported career. A great deal of middle school children would always lean towards the heroic path. To Midoriya Inko's dismay, nevertheless, her son's heroic attitude began to wander. Izuku's behavior gradually began to take on the characteristics of a delinquent, as opposed to his previous mild and compassionate demeanor. The youngster started to disregard his mother's kindness and tenderness, even though he was determined to become a hero. The adorable little child with the kind smile and the eyes that came alive when heroes were discussed was no longer there. Instead, a scowling, potential misbehaving child took his place. Izuku always aspired to be a hero, but as time went on, he began to feel envious of children with visually striking oddities, such as Bakugo Katsuki. What about him? The boy's hands were like factories producing fireworks. Izuku was limited to healing his wounds more quickly than usual. His peculiarity could only benefit him and not others. The youngsters would often tease him about. Though they had made their marks, the grown-ups would frequently attempt to refute such beliefs. Izuku had a strong belief for a while that he would not make a great hero since heroes looked out for others as well as themselves. Izuku struggled a lot with the idea that he could only help himself, but he overcame it in the end and even learned to deal by studying heroes and their peculiarities. Izuku may have kept Quirk research notebooks because he was a huge fan of heroes, but in actuality, he only kept those notes because he was hoping to find a quirk that would really come in handy in a fight. He secretly wished he had All Might's strength to rescue over 1,000 lives and All Might's ability to take down enemies with a single blow. Izuku had a need for more, and that need left a hole in him that was begging to be filled. This urge persisted until one day, at the age of 10. On a doomed day, a 13-year-old bully chose to cause trouble for Midoriya Izuku. It was also the day that Midoriya Izuku's soul had been filled with the will to battle. 26.02.20 We see Izuku and Katsuki standing in front of the UA later that same day. Gates, maniacal grins or eager smiles on their faces. Izuku said, "Hey. Good luck." "Yes, as if I require it," Katsuki answered. "Just don't fail the exam." "I was just about to say the same thing to you," Izuku said. Just as the two boys were moving forward, Izuku Midoriya was abruptly stopped by a girl he believed he would never see again. Yo, Hiro Otaku, Bakahatsu. Izuku was taken aback when he saw the young girl, who had short dark purple hair and two earphone jacks that appeared to be attached to her earlobes. Wait, those were her earlobes. She was wearing a gray pencil skirt, black winter boots, and a blue blazer with a red bow on the collar of a white blouse. Juru, what are you doing here? Juru Kyoka, the girl we see, is a former student of Izuku and Katsuki. When Juru enrolled in Isami Junior High and Izuku and Katsuki at Aldera Middle School, the trio that had been friends since elementary school had to break up. Waving at their old acquaintance, Katsuki replied, "Yo, Lobes, I thought you were applying for Shiketsu?" The girl called Juru answered, "Yeah, right, I failed their mock tests, so I came here instead." Izuku responded, "That's to be expected. Shiketsu's mock tests are ridiculously impossible. You'd have to be crazy smart to even have a chance." With a sigh, the girl said, "Rub it in, why don't ya? Anyway, I thought I studied enough, but man, those logic and practical application questions really threw me off." "All right, if you succeed," Katsuki said. "Looks like the gang will be back together, huh?" "Yes, that is accurate," Izuku answered. "Well, except for, you know, him." The three children had a depressing feeling in common. They had been a quartet before the fourth member left for an unknown reason. Their link was strong and they were very close, but all of a sudden, their fourth friend simply turned them aside. Without providing any explanation, he simply got up and walked in his own direction. "Arg!" snarled Katsuki, making a few students who were passing by cringe. "Let's just forget about that bastard and focus on us. Who cares where he is now? All that matters is that the three of us are going to UA." Katsuki then raised his hand. Izuku and Kyoka exchanged a smile. Izuku fist bumped the blonde and said, "Yeah." Kyoka grinned and said, "Whatever." She followed suit. The girl then became aware of a boy's characteristic. "Wait, did you guys get taller?" Katsuki questioned, "You just noticed that now?" Kyoka defended herself by raising her arms and said, "Well, to be fair, the last time I saw you guys was almost a year ago." "Well, whatever," answered Izuku. "Let's get going, it's freezing out here." The boy with green hair turned around and moved forward, not realizing that the girl with brown hair was in front of him. The brunette went to the ground as they collided. Izuku was a little alarmed when he saw this, but he quickly reached down to assist the girl. Izuku apologized. "I wasn't paying attention. You all right? Here, let me help you up." Izuku extended his hand, and the girl accepted it, getting to her feet. "Sorry about that, I didn't see you there." With a smile, the brunette shook her head. "It's all right, in fact I could say thanks for bumping into me. I'm really nervous about the exam, and you bumping into me really shook me out of my nerves." Izuku sighed with relief. The girl then gave him a closer look. She was dressed in a black pencil skirt, black leggings, a pink scarf, and a brown jacket. Presumably the girl's school uniform shirt was hidden behind her jacket. She questioned, "Aren't you nervous?" "Not really," Izuku responded. "I've been training for the past 10 months to get ready." Katsuki, the blonde, couldn't help but remember back to approximately a month earlier when she heard this. Around 3:45 p.m. on a Saturday, Bakugo Katsuki was riding his bike to the municipal beach in Dagoba. Izuku had earlier requested him to meet at that location, mentioning something about training and a strange incident involving his body. Katsuki was shocked to find the beach clear of the mounds of debris that had previously covered it. What took place? What the devil happened to all of the debris and trash that was formerly visible? Katsuki shook his head, breaking out of his reverie to see Izuku on the sand. His companion was dressed in a green track suit with white stripes down the sides. Izuku was practicing striking and kicking. Katsuki shouted, "Oi, Deku, I'm here. What the hell do you want?" Izuku gave up on his workout. The boy grinned and continued, "Oh, no reason, I just want to kick your ass again, Bakahatsu." Izuku was met with a sly glance from Katsuki. "Oh, so it's like that then? I'll have you know that you weren't the only one training his ass off." Izuku answered, cracking his knuckles, "Obviously, since both of us had to take extra credit because we both fell asleep in class." They were still in the thick of winter, for crying out loud, and this guy is just wearing a tank top. Katsuki removed his jacket to see that he was only wearing a black tank top. Izuku removed his tracksuit jacket, revealing a dark green tank top below. These boys and their tank tops. What is going on? Not less than in the middle of winter in Japan. When Izuku told Katsuki 9 months ago that his friend would be training for the UA, he was a little taken aback. The ash blonde saw this as a challenge and started preparing for the admission exam. Fortunately for Katsuki, his father, Bakugo Masaru, was a highly successful businessman with several ties to some of Japan's top martial arts instructors. Katsuki made the most of this by training his body, not his quirk, like crazy. Since Izuku's quirk was just a healing factor, Katsuki wanted to get in better shape. The explosion quirk user understood that Izuku was an experienced fighter, so he prepared to study martial arts to match Izuku's level of proficiency and physical skill. The once thin, muscular ash blonde Katsuki was replaced with a little bulkier young teen after his training concluded. He shared almost Izuku's current muscular build, and they both stood at a height of 182 centimeters, 5 feet 10 inches. "Alright, let's see if our training actually paid off," Izuku responded. Katsuki assumed a combat stance. "Don't you dare hold back, or else." The boys let out a cry as they charged at one another, slamming fists to start a fight. The boys were seated on the neighboring steps, regaining their breath, 30 minutes later. Katsuki was bleeding and had bruises, but Izuku was unhurt. Katsuki hissed, "Damn that healing factor of yours." Izuku chuckled and placed his right hand on Katsuki's neck, causing his hand to briefly glow green. Katsuki's wounds began to heal rather quickly. The ash blonde's body began to feel better after a short while as the discomfort gradually subsided. Izuku's healing factor had the truly wonderful benefit of teaching him how to heal others through actual skin contact. When Izuku was asked to cure the girls at Aldera, things got a little strange, but hey, healing oddities were always necessary, and Izuku got paid for his difficulties nonetheless. Then Izuku got up and dug into his backpack, taking out 2 bottles of Pepsi and 4 energy bars. The drawback of Izuku's healing others was that it often depleted his body's fat stores and stamina. In the absence of sufficient fat, the healing would deplete his body's reserves of whatever was left. Izuku turned to face Katsuki as they finished their small snack and said, "Hey, remember that one kid who had a dual quirk?" With a, "Yeah," Katsuki concluded his energy bar. Her mother could create water from the moisture in the air and her dad had telekinesis. Izuku gave a nod. The combination gave her a quirk that allowed her to create water and control it telekinetically. Katsuki finished his final can of Pepsi. "Why are you telling me this?" Izuku began, "Well, for the longest time when I was younger, I always wanted a better quirk. I always wanted an emitter type, something flashy, you know." Katsuki, sounding increasingly irritated, asked, "Seriously, where are you going with this?" Izuku got up and went to the coastline, saying, "What the hell, it's better if I just show you." With a shout, he pulled back his right arm. Smash. The waves then began to spread out to the sides as a shockwave passed across the ocean. What the hell was that? Katsuki thought, gaping at the display of power. Can Deku's healing quirk accomplish this? Was he trying to hide this from me? Oi, Deku. What the hell was that? Izuku grinned sardonically as he turned to face Katsuki, but wait, he seemed to be in pain. That's when Katsuki saw his friend's arm. Katsuki screamed as he got up, and what the hell happened to your arm? But he didn't panic too much because Izuku's arm was already beginning to recover. Seems like a drawback, Izuku said. But long story short, I figured out my real quirk. My healing factor was just a part of it. And what is it? Some sort of super strength, or was that an emitter type? Izuku flexed his left arm to clarify, both. It's actually an emitter type that increases my physical strength. And I can channel that strength as kinetic energy through my extremities, even my fingers for example. So this is the weird thing that happened to your body? Replied Katsuki. Indeed, Izuku smiled. I just need to train this strength since it does damage to me as well. Good thing I have healing factor. How do you even discover this power? It just happened while I was training. I suddenly felt like I could punch through walls. And then the craziest thing happened. I punched a hole through the wall of my room, but my hand was pretty much jelly after that. At that moment, Katsuki would never find out, but the tale Izuku gave him was a lie, concocted by his best buddy to hide something from him. Izuku genuinely didn't want to lie to his friend either, but the way his recovery transpired around One for All's comeback, the narrative was just too compelling. Following some small talk and mutual introductions, Izuku found out the girl's name was Uraraka Ochako. The brunette then wished the three of them success before scurrying inside the building. Izuku had a smile on her face. Kyoka grinned in response. She was kind of cute, don't you think? Izuku couldn't think of a suitable reply as he stared in shock. Katsuki grinned too. Lobes, I didn't know you swing that way. I guess all three of us like girls then. Izuku sighed mentally in relief, but he also chuckled at Katsuki's sharp remark. Kyoka said, unfazed by the explosive quirk user's joke. Wait, you like girls, Bakugo? I thought you had a crush on Midoriya over here. The volume of Kyoka's statements caused both Katsuki and Izuku to flush, which was exacerbated when other students and examinees turned to face them and began a chorus of muttering. Hey, isn't that Bakugo? You mean the guy from the sludge villain fiasco? Yeah, and isn't that Midoriya, the guy who rushed in to save him? Yeah, you're right. Wait, what did that girl say? Bakugo has crush on him. He's gay? I think they're both gay. Aw man, they were really good looking too. Katsuki and Izuku stayed behind to clear up any confusion, while Kyoka chuckled as she hurried into the orientation hall. That bitch! Snarled the two boys. Present Mike, also known as Yamada Hazashi, was heard saying, for all of you examinee listeners tuning in, welcome to my show today. Everybody say, hey, but there was complete stillness in response to his opening remarks. With trembling arms, Present Mike exclaimed, what a refined response. All right, let me quickly give you an overview of the practical exam. Are you prepared? Yes, was again received with silence. Present Mike, it's the voice hero, Izuku grinned. No surprise since all teachers here at UA are pro heroes. I love this guy's radio show and even his daily talk shows. Izuku was dragged closer by Katsuki, who then snarled into the greenhead's ear. Don't even start. Present Mike said, as stated in the application requirements, you listeners will be conducting 10-minute mock battles after this. The number of additional combat centers to which the examinees will be allocated was then displayed on the large screen behind Present Mike. Present Mike said, you can bring whatever you want with you to these areas, and he reached under the platform to retrieve a metal baseball bat. Most of you probably have support gear with you to aid your quirks like this directional speaker I have around my neck, or even typical melee weapons like this bat here. Oh no, Izuku exclaimed. If I had known that beforehand, I would have brought my bow staff with me. With a, like you need it, Katsuki answered, just make sure you pass. Izuku said in a mockingly cutesy voice. Ah, is Kachan gonna pissed if I don't make it? Present Mike cried out, but there was still no response. After the presentation, you'll head to the battle center specified on your exam tickets. Okay. Okay. In other words, they won't let you work with your friends or classmates, Katsuki replied. You're right. Even though our examinee numbers are consecutive, we've been assigned to different battle centers, Izuku responded. Katsuki hissed, that's a damn shame. I wanted to take you down as well. The presentation was then carried out by Present Mike. There are 3 different types of foe villains stationed at each battle center. You earn points for each them based on their level of difficulty. Your goal, dear listeners, is to your quirks by immobilizing the foe villains. The presenter then pivoted to face the examinees and indicated, of course, attacking other examinees and doing any other unheroic actions are prohibited. One of the male examinees yelled, "May I ask a question?" and stood up quickly, raising his arm. Present Mike pointed to the examinee and said, "Okay." A spotlight then shone down on the examinee, who was a small child wearing a formal uniform consisting of a blue tie, trousers and a beige coat. The child was wearing spectacles. On the printout, there are 4 types of villains. If that is a misprint, then UA, the most prominent school in Japan, should be ashamed of that foolish mistake. We examinees are here in this place because we wish to be molded into exemplary heroes. Murmured Katsuki. He could have just pointed out the 4th villain without that dumbass speech. Izuku continued. The glasses-wearing boy turned to face Bakugo and Midoriya and stated, in addition, you two, the one with blonde hair and the one with curly hair. You two have been talking to each other and distracting me and the rest of the examinees. If you two aren't serious about this exam, then please leave. Tick marks appeared on Katsuki and Izuku's foreheads. They nodded to each other after looking at one another. Then, in an unexpected turn of events, they apologized and grinned politely. Later, I'll take this guy out, Katsuki yelled in his mind, his face twisted into a furious scowl. Izuku rolled his eyes at the child, thinking, the hell is up with this guy, it's like he's got a huge stick up his ass. Present Mike responded, all right, calm down. Examinee number 7111. Thanks for the great message. The 4th villain's silhouette materialized on the screen. The 4th type of villain is worth 0 points. That's guys more of an obstacle, so to speak. There's one in every battle center, an obstacle that'll go crazy in narrow spaces. It's not impossible to defeat, but there's no reason to defeat it, either. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. The boy in the outfit bowed and said, thank you very much. Please excuse the interruption. Present Mike exclaimed, that's all from me. At last, I'll share with the audience our school's motto. Go beyond. Plus ultra, Napoleon Bonaparte, the Great, famously remarked, a true hero is someone who overcomes life's hardships. Present Mike continued, now, everyone, good luck suffering, but don't get killed, ya hear. Izuku and Katsuki suddenly smiled menacingly and began to radiate a malevolent aura that made the examinees sitting next to them uneasy. Following the conclusion of the presentation, the examinees were led to the school's locker rooms to change out of their uniforms and into more appropriate attire for fighting. Following that, they were led once more to a series of buses that would transport them to the designated battle centers. Prior to boarding his bus, Izuku witnessed Kyoka approaching him. Her attire consisted of a black tracksuit and black boots that were very large. She unbuttoned her jacket to show off a pink t-shirt. Saying, yo, Midoriya, Kyoka spoke. I guess we both got Battle Center B, huh? Yes. Kachan received a C, Izuku answered. We won't be seeing each other. Damn shame too. I really wanted to do this exam while stealing points from under his nose. Kyoka responded, geez. Cool it, bad boy. If you don't watch out, I'll be the one who steals your points. Mostly because Kyoka was unaware of one for all, Izuku grinned. Bring it. After that, they boarded the bus and were driven to the designated battle center. Izuku clenched his fist on the bus. This marks the commencement of his journey towards becoming a hero. Izuku remembered his beach training sessions with All Might as he looked down at his right hand. He also recalled sharing his healing quirk with the hero. Answering All Might's inquisitiveness, "It's not really that perfect," Izuku remarked. "My healing actually has a drawback." "And that would be?" "I found out that if I sustain injuries to more than 50% of my body, my healing capabilities go down." "How much so?" Izuku cast a downward glance. "Back when I was delinquent. I'll just say that." All Might asked, "Anything else that I should know about?" "My healing factor needs a crazy amount of fuel to function properly. I can't heal as fast on an empty stomach." All Might did little more than nod his head in comprehension. "Well, now that we know your limits, let's try to work a way around them, shall we?" All Might declared as much, but Izuku never was able to overcome his initial shortcoming. If Izuku had just consumed a lot of food prior to a conflict, the second one would have been simple to avoid. There was no time for carelessness here, and Izuku couldn't afford to be careless. There was no space for failure. Izuku had to demonstrate his ability to become a hero. Everything depended on his performance on this exam. Trained by the world's greatest hero, honoring his mother's promise, and making amends for his past. Here, errors could not be allowed. Izuku fastened the straps of his fingerless boxing gloves around his hands as the examinees filed out of the bus. A large number of examinees were permitted to bring along supporting documentation. Izuku, however, chose to stick with tradition. He would have taken the weapons he was good with, but he was unaware that they were legal. Izuku took a deep breath and stretched, although his light green tracksuit jacket made him feel a little awkward. "Maybe I should just take this thing off," Izuku said, and when he did, he revealed that, for crying out loud, he was wearing a dark green tank top underneath his jacket. Let me quickly redact that scenario as this fanfic's creator. Izuku had on a dark green, sleeveless shirt underneath his jacket. The child stretched again and replied, "Yeah, that feels much better." He then tightened his fingers and wrapped his knuckles together. "All right, let's do this." Izuku then looked around to assess the level of competition. He then spotted Kyoka with Uraraka. It appeared as though the punk girl was attempting to soothe the brunette, suggesting that the gravity quirk user still hadn't overcome her worries. "Everyone's so confident." "Well, then again, so am I," he said. "Hey, it's Uraraka and Juru. I should wish them good luck." Izuku was about to approach the girl when he felt a hand land on his shoulder. "Who?" Izuku looked up at him. Izuku shot a blank glance at the bespectacled adolescent who had raged at him back at the exam center, thinking, "Shit, not this guy again." The boy added, "Those girls seem to be trying to focus. What are you doing here? Are you taking the entrance exam to interfere with everyone else?" Izuku sighed inwardly. He'd rather put up with Katsuki's sour attitude. Izuku said, "Look. First off, if a guy like you gets distracted that easily, you'll never make it in the big leagues where distractions are everywhere." The teenager flinched visibly at this. Even the other examinees agreed with the remarks made by the green-haired teen, nodding their heads. Superheroes have been known to deal with more distractions than two children mumbling in a school auditorium. Secondly, I was gonna wish them good luck. I also owe that girl with brown hair since she was really nice to me back at the exam center. I mean, look at her, what kind of person would cause such a nice girl like that to fail? When Uraraka heard this, she flushed. Juru grinned at the brunette who was blushing, and then the girl murmured something in her ear, making her blush even redder. Just as the boy with the glasses opened his mouth to apologize, Izuku spoke again. Izuku then placed his hand on the adolescent's shoulder, leaned in, and gave him his most terrible death gaze. "And third," Izuku said, "if you get in my way, I'll kill you." The teenager with the glasses winced at these words. That kind of behavior is too unacceptable. It's unfitting of being a hero. Izuku simply shook his head and walked away. Luckily for Izuku, nobody else noticed this. Unacceptable. Present Mike spoke out to the examinees who were waiting in front of the entrance. "Okay. Start." Then the examinees noticed the voice hero perched on a concrete tower that provided a commanding view of the surrounding area. Izuku grinned. The greenette wasted no time in charging into the make-believe city. Present Mike said, staring at the cloud of dust behind the youngster with green hair, "Wow, that kid can run." The other examinees were still in front of the gates, as he noticed. "Well, what are you waiting for? There's no countdown in real life. The die has been cast, you know. Go, go, go." Izuku continued to sprint while grinning till he came upon his first opponent, a three-point shooter. Izuku said, "Too easy," before lunging in and punching the robot, setting it out on fire. "This is awesome. Even if 20% is all I can get without hurting myself, it'll have to do for now." Just to be clear, Izuku hasn't mastered full cowl yet. At this point, he's only able to concentrate 20% of one for all into one or two appendages at a time. Keeping to his goal, Izuku kept jogging while trying to identify more robots. A one-pointer here, a three-pointer there, and many two-pointers in a group. Izuku scored a respectable amount of points overall, however he lost rack after scoring 25. Whatever the case, things would be simple as long as he continued to defeat these robots. Present Mike exclaimed, 6 minutes and 2 seconds left. Izuku let out a chuckle. He hurried out to locate more villains after saying, "Hey, time flies. I wonder how Juru and Uraraka are doing. I hope they get enough points to pass." As Izuku was thinking about the girls, we see that they are actually doing rather well. Though her breath was getting short, Uraraka was using her peculiarity regarding gravity to lift the pretend villains into the air and drop them. That makes 28 points. Izuku blurted out, 28 points, man, she's good. Juru was using her boots, which turned out to be speakers, in conjunction with her earphone jacks. The sound waves coming from them were powerful enough to smash the pretend bad guys to bits. 33 points in the bag. Oh shit, how many points do I have? Man, I can't believe I lost count. The ground shook as Izuku began to freak out over his point condition. The examinees turned their heads towards what sounded like a tank's treads rolling on concrete as a result. Glass breaking, a few buildings crumbling, and the sudden appearance of a massive robot all happened after the sound. Kyoka dashed towards Izuku. "Midoriya, what is that?" Izuku and Kyoka were immediately covered in a shadow, and the naughty lad looked up. It turned out to be the zero-pointer. The robot then used one of its arms to smash into a nearby structure. It's a crazy obstacle that will go crazy in narrow spaces. I recommend that you listeners try to avoid it. Isn't it a tad too large? Izuku pondered carefully. That's obviously the zero-pointer. Kyoka said, "That's one huge robot," gazing with amazement at the machine's size. "Kinda overkill, don't you think?" Then the robot punched the ground, covering the area with a cloud of dust. Kyoka was sheltered from the wind and dust by Izuku, who grabbed her. The dust quickly settled. Izuku let go of his friend and faced the zero-pointer. "We should get out here." Kyoka glanced up at Izuku, who appeared to be blushing slightly. "Yeah, we should." The two then saw that the other examinees were fleeing the location, having the same thought. Izuku turned around after giving the zero-pointer one last glance, and Kyoka promptly turned heel and raced for it. Izuku raced up beside the bespectacled kid and shouted, "Oh hey, if it isn't Four Eyes. I thought that thing killed you." The boy screamed, "Again with your unacceptable behavior. I wished never to utter words like these, but I hope you fail." Izuku grinned. But when he heard it, Izuku's smile faded. "Aw, you do love me." "Ow. Somebody, help me." Izuku heard clearly, but it was muffled against the treads of the zero-pointers. He turned back and found Uraraka buried behind a massive pile of debris. The fact that the zero-pointer was advancing in her direction just made matters worse. Barely a thought occurred, and his legs resumed their natural motion. When it came to saving people, Midoriya Izuku had a deep-rooted conviction. He heard the sound of the car's horn that fateful night, but was unable to save his mother, leaving her in a coma. That was probably the cause of Izuku's legs occasionally taking on a life of their own. Izuku retreated, seemingly out of instinct. Fighting the pretend victim has no value at all. However, that gives it the chance to shine brightly. He jumped after directing all of one for all into his legs. And ascend to the top. Izuku channeled one for all into his right arm in a moment of rage and desperation, clenched his fist, and reeled back. Genkatsu. Shout this from your heart while clenching your ass. Izuku screamed, smash, as his fist struck the zero-pointer's head. When Uraraka, Juru, and the other examinees saw the zero-pointer on the ground, they could only stare in horror and disbelief. Yes, it is correct. The quality of self-sacrifice is the most crucial requirement for a hero, and it emerges. The sensation of pure adrenaline coursing through his body drowned out the pain shooting through his right arm and legs, but as soon as the adrenaline surge subsided, the anguish just kept coming. Izuku tightened his jaw as he went down. I won't be able to survive a fall from this height, and this is problematic because my arm and legs are still recovering. Asshat. I should have given this more thinking. I have no other options. With his left hand clenched, he directed one for all into his lone functional arm and aimed. I'm hoping that this will break my fall. SMAS. Slap. Wait, what? Izuku exclaimed as he found himself suspended a few feet above the floor. Uraraka, who was also floating on a robot's head, pressed her fingertips together and muttered, release. Izuku felt his legs begin to mend as he slowly floated to the ground. He turned onto his back and gradually straightened himself up to sit. Then Uraraka presented him to her mouth opening and her stomach gushing forth. Izuku averted his gaze. Can you throw up rainbows? Izuku thought with a hint of humor. Izuku eventually recovered feeling in both of his kickers. He then got to his feet and moved to assist Uraraka in escaping the robot's head. During this time, his arm also began to mend, albeit slightly numb. Izuku said, thanks for the save, while wearing a girl's bridal attire. I would have been flatter than a pancake if it wasn't for you. Being carried in this manner made Uraraka blush, but she was so sick to her stomach that she was barely able to stand. Present Mike spoke out, and time's up, as an alarm went out, clearly informing all of the test takers in each battle center that the exam was about to end. Izuku remarked, crap, I wanted to get more points, and he cast a sidelong glance at Uraraka. Hey, you think you can stand on your own? The girl just nodded, and Izuku carefully let Uraraka go. Although she was a little unsteady, Uraraka was still able to support herself. Midoriya, Uraraka, said Kyoka, sprinting towards the pair. Are you two alright? Izuku grinned and gave a head nod. Lost a glove, Izuku said, raising his right hand, but I'm good. A little lightheaded, Uraraka remarked, but I'm fine. Then Kyoka looked across at Izuku. Pointing at the zero-pointer behind them, the girl exclaimed, what the hell was that? I thought your quirk was a healing factor, you never said anything about super strength, what was that? Whoa, please calm down, Izuku exclaimed, raising his hands. I can explain all this later, we should go check on Kachan first. The other examinees could only look in amazement at the green-haired teen as the three children talked on. With one hit, he eliminated the zero-pointer after making an incredible leap into the air. What was that guy? He suddenly jumped at the obstacle. He seemed to have a reinforcement-type quirk, but that awesome. He has such an amazing quirk, kinda like All Might. Why'd he take down the zero-pointer anyway? Maybe he knew time was running out and decided to do it for fun. With a quirk that could do that, I'd probably do the same. Anyway, there's no mistaking that he's one amazing guy. The bespectacled kid thought, they aren't getting the point. Were they blind? He saved that girl, not just himself, by jumping and pulling out the zero-pointer for amusement. The teenager then turned to face the mutilated remains of the zero-pointer. Like the rest of us, he was rushing away, but he turned around because, even though I could hear her crying for assistance. Nevertheless, when he noticed her buried behind the debris, he acted without hesitation at all. The teenager with the glasses clenched his fist and gritted his teeth in shame. Of course, I would have done the same and put myself on the queue if we hadn't been in an exam. The teenager realized then. Exam, hold on. He pivoted to gaze upon the child with green hair. Naturally? Give it a minute. Was it possible for him to have? Okay. Good work everyone. Examinees turned to find an older woman leading the way, followed by a younger female. Good work, really good work. After giving out candies, the elderly woman turned to face the younger girl standing behind her. Miwa-chan, go around to see if there are any examinees who need help. Miwa, the girl, gave a nod of her head. You can count on me, Obaka. Izuku approached the elderly woman and remarked, Hey, you're Recovery Girl, the youthful hero who can heal others. With happiness, Recovery Girl remarked, I see I still have fans. Are you injured, young man? Izuku gave a headshake. No, I'm fine. If anything, could I help out? The Recovery Girl answered, With what, young man? The exam is over, you can go home now. With healing, that is, Izuku remarked. I have a healing factor, and part of that power is that I can heal others through physical contact. The girl in recovery grinned. All right then, come with me. There he goes again, Kyoka remarked. Midoriya is the kind of guy who is always willing to help others regardless of his own standing. Uraraka questioned, You mean he does this a lot? Yup, but that's why he's such a great friend, he's always there for you no matter what. This did little more than confirm the bespectacled teen's ideas in the boy with green hair. Izuku looked down at the letter sealed with a red wax seal, stealing his nerves. Then he tore the letter open, letting drop a tiny electronic gadget. What's this? Abruptly, the gadget became operational. I am here as a projection. With amazement, Izuku asked, Huh? All Might? Wait, if you're, that must mean. All Might bowed and coughed into his fist, saying, I had to do some paperwork that took some time, so I couldn't find time to contact you. I am sorry. Actually, I came to this town to work at UA. Huh, All Might is working at UA. Abruptly, someone off-screen gestured to All Might. Huh? What is it? Wrap it up. But there's something I must talk to him about. Izuku asked himself, can't it wait until school starts? It's going to push everything else back. All right. Okay. Izuku looked at the projection for a moment, uncertain. Since you passed the written exam and got quite an impressive score of 40 points on the practical exam, that would mean you passed. Izuku exhaled a sigh of comfort. And I actually panicked about my points during the exam. Damn it, I shouldn't doubt my abilities. That may be that, but there was a bit of a surprise. I am an entertainer as well. Is he talking about that time at the beach? All Might yelled, pointing a remote control at a flat screen behind him. First, watch this video. We can see Uraraka Ochako on the television. Excuse me, Izuku said to no one in particular. Huh? Uraraka? That looks like the inside of the school. What's she doing there? She came to negotiate directly in person after the exam had ended. Huh? Negotiate what? You might ask. Keep watching and find out. In the video, Present Mike and Uraraka are seen conversing. The person with curly hair and freckles, do you know who I'm talking about? Izuku gestured towards himself. That's me, I think. Midoriya Izuku. Again, Izuku said to no one in particular. Yup, that's me. Uraraka said, is it possible for me to give him some of my points? Wait, why would she? I heard him say, I wanted to gain more points, so I thought maybe he didn't have enough points to pass the practical exam. It's probably because he had to save me that he might not have gotten the points he needed. Please, if you can do anything. Izuku remarked, whoa, Uraraka would do something like that for someone she's only known for a short time. He expressed his admiration for her for speaking up and doing such an action. The video was then paused by All Might. In addition to having another quirk, your actions spurred others to act. Her actions are truly commendable for the hero course. The entrance exam, though, wasn't graded only on villain points. Present Mike caressed Uraraka's head and said, even if you ask to, you cannot give him your points. Anyway, there's no reason to give him any, little miss listener. How can a hero course reject people who save others and do the right thing? Call that lip service. Bring it on. This is a job that requires risking one's life to put that lip service into practice. Rescue points. Izuku grinned and his eyes grew wide at this. I wonder Kachan got any. Nah, I doubt it. And they are awarded by a panel of judges. It's the other basic ability we at UA are looking for. Midoriya Izuku, with 60 rescue points and 40 villain points. Your name was added to the roster of UA applicants who scored 100 or more points during our annual practical exam. Oh my god, Izuku exhaled. The only ones who ever got scores like that were heroes like All Might, Endeavor, and Best Jeanist. And Uraraka Ochako, 40 villain points and 20 rescue points, for a total of 60 points. You both pass. Izuku couldn't help but chuckle at his score, not because it was humorous or anything, but rather because he was suddenly considered deserving of a place next to 3 of Japan's greatest UA heroes. Entrance examination. Izuku began to cry and exclaim, "Oh man, this is too crazy." He was crying because he realized that, in addition to being closer to realizing his dream and making amends for his past, he was also closer to keeping the promise he made to his mother, Midoriya Inko, before that fateful day when she had gone into a coma. "Come, Midoriya Shonen," declared All Might. "This is your hero academia." "Yes, sir," exclaimed Izuku. Nothing could have been better for Midoriya Izuku, who was thrilled to be heading to the UA at last. He was headed towards becoming a hero. At 3:30 p.m. the next day, Midoriya Izuku is once more seen riding his bike. He felt compelled to tell his mother about the exam, even though she did not respond to anything he said. Izuku was sitting next to his mother's bed, holding a bouquet of mixed flowers. He placed the flowers on a table close by. The child declared, "I'm finally on my way to becoming a hero. I passed the UA entrance exam. I'll be starting school in a couple months." Inko was lying on the bed, just as she usually did. Her expression was so tranquil and quiet. Tears threatened to spill from Izuku's eyes as he said, "I know I haven't been good, and I always blame myself for what happened that night. But still, I'll keep my promise. I'll be a hero, one that you will be proud of." Izuku turned when she heard a loud bang on the door. "Hello," said the door as Inko's doctor, a middle-aged woman who was also a close friend of the Midoriya family, stepped out. "Oh, Izuku-kun, you're still here, that's good. I have some wonderful news to tell you." Izuku got to his feet. "What is it, Dr. Shiroyama?" The doctor showed Izuku the clipboard she was holding and remarked, "Well, we've been a very close eye on your mother for some time now. I'm pretty sure you're not that familiar with medical procedures, but these graphs here show your mother's brain activity over the last month, compared to her brain activity to 6 months ago." Izuku examined the charts. They were line charts. This one has steady lines, while this has lines that spike up and down. What does that mean? The doctor smiled hopefully and added, "Your mother has been neurologically conscious for the past month. We actually suspect that she might even come out of her coma sometime soon. It's all a matter of when she wakes up." Izuku turned to face his mother once again before reclining and grabbing Inko's right hand. Izuku, tears streaming down his cheeks, whispered, "You hear that, Mom? You're getting better. I always knew you strong. You'll get to see me becoming a hero with your own 2 eyes, isn't that great? The cumulative results for the practical exam are out. Mom, please wake up soon so I can finally fulfill my promise with you watching me. I can't believe this kid got 2nd place with 87 villain points and 0 rescue points." The faux villains acquire their targets and draw near them. In the second half, as others were slowing down, he used his flashy quirk to keep bringing them close and then counter-attacking. It's the result of his toughness. He's set quite a good record actually. The only applicant we know with villain points that high was Endeavor. This kid sure has the potential to stand out from the others, that's for sure. However, in contrast, the first placer managed to rack up 100 points in total. There have been other examinees who took on the 0-pointer in the past, but it's been a while since I last saw someone blow it away like that. At first, his limbs were flailing around like noodles after his attack, but sometime later he was walking around like nothing happened. To possess such a destructive quirk accompanied with a healing factor, this kid could go places if he trains hard enough. Well, he can practically stand alongside All Might, Endeavor, and best genist in terms of the exam's point scores. I'm sure he'll make it big one day. We observe a scruffy-looking man in the background glancing at the image of Midoriya Izuku up on one of the screens while the panel of judges was debating how many applicants had passed. The man grinned and remembered that fateful night 3 years ago when he first met Midoriya Izuku. Oh. He actually stayed true to what he told me then. With that score, he'll end up in my class for sure. This should be fun. Aizawa Shota was identified in the hero industry as the Erasure Hero. Eraserhead, an underground hero who worked at night. He was a man of mystery, intrigue, and most importantly, a logical and sensible intellect. This is because he despises the media, which is the only explanation for his decision to exclusively perform heroic deeds under cover of darkness. As Aizawa was actually a bit of a night owl, the nocturnal environment was somewhat advantageous to him. Erasure Hero had his job cut out for him because crime was much more prevalent at night. Since not all criminals were motivated to commit crimes every night, the nights would typically grow a little monotonous. However, one night while on patrol in Musutafu, Eraser noticed a really strange sight. A fight in an alleyway. At first glance, this might not have seemed odd, but upon closer inspection, Aizawa saw that the fight was a 3-on-1. Even worse, the lone fighter appeared to be little more than 11 years old. Since the other 3 appeared to be, at best, older offenders beyond the age of 17, Aizawa wished to put an end to this fight. But, the longer the Erasure Hero observed the fight, the more he realized that the smaller child was managing to hold his own against the much older teens. For this reason, he chose not to break up the fight. It seems that the youngster had already won when Eraser made the decision to face him. Eraser decided to take action before the child ran, so he put on his goggles to protect his eyes, leapt off his perch and used the scarf-like material around his neck to grab onto the nearby apartment building's cornerstone. The child jumped back and tumbled to the ground, temporarily shocked by Eraserhead's presence as he landed. Eraserhead gave the child a hand and remarked, "Pretty impressive kid, taking on 3 older teens like this. But I have to ask, for what reason did you start a fight with them?" The child exclaimed, Eraserhead, as he peered in wonder and mild terror at the Erasure Hero. "I didn't do anything wrong, I was just..." Eraser responded, "So you know I am then," taking off his goggles. "Just answer the question." The child responded, albeit he appeared a little nervous. "They were picking on my friends at school." Eraserhead questioned, "Bullies, huh? You could have just reported this to the police, I'm sure they would have." The child cried, "The police never do anything," at the Erasure Hero, taking him by surprise. "They never believe me when I tell them about these thugs. Every time I try to explain what's going on, they just tell me to go home and that they'd handle it," the child seemed to be saying, giving the impression that this happened frequently. "There was even one time where they told me to stop making jokes and just do things kids would do. The police are useless, they never do anything." Eraserhead frowned quietly. He was in Musutafu City after all, and the majority of the police officers he saw here seemed a little resentful of having to choose police employment over being heroes. This resentment would therefore have an impact on not just how they carried out their duties but also how they regularly interacted with others. Eraserhead even recalled the story of a police officer who was so upset about his way of life that he started carrying a gun and started the famous Musutafu shopping center shooting. The man had killed multiple people before setting himself on fire with a grenade. Eraser shook his head, glancing at the youngster and trying to figure out what his peculiarity was. "Tell me, what kind of quirk do you have? It must be something strong in order for you to have taken on these teens by yourself. Also, what's your name?" "Midoriya Izuku," the young person answered, "and my quirk, it's a healing factor." That's how he was able to defeat them. Certain healing quirks have the ability to completely eliminate pain and even give the person extremely high levels of endurance. Your quirk isn't really that flashy. Villains out there have far more dangerous quirks than you can imagine, you know. A healing factor may be useful to you, but what use can it be to others? Tell me, do you want to become a hero? Despite your lack of flashiness? Why was he asking such inquiries? Eraserhead began acting rather illogically, towards this child for some reason. I mean, this kid needs to be taken home, not questioned. Concerned for his well-being? He had a lot of options, so why did he choose to waste time asking the child meaningless questions? More than anything, Eraserhead's eyes met Midoriya's as he turned to face him. I just want to help others, regardless of many think. I just want to help people in need. At that moment, Aizawa Shota noticed something in the child's gaze. A fire, a burning yearning. I don't care what my quirk is, as long as I can lend a helping hand, Izuku stated. As long as I can be there to reassure people and let them know that they're safe, I just want to be someone who can say, it's fine now, because I'm here. Aizawa Shota was a hero for many reasons, and it so happened that he could identify with some of the things these children had expressed. He, too, was driven to save lives, indifferent to the fact that he lacked an eye-catching feature, and, although he would never acknowledge it, motivated to comfort the vulnerable. Tell me then, Eraserhead went on. If given the chance one day, would you truly follow your dreams, even if people told you otherwise? Izuku remarked, clenching his fist, I've already set my sights on my future, Eraserhead-san. One day, I'll go to UA and become a cool hero. Aizawa was certain that this child had promise, even if he had a difficult time and turned into a delinquent. That didn't matter, though, because Aizawa Shota was a UA teacher and a pro hero. His role was essentially to create heroes, and if Midoriya Izuku's belief remained as strong as it did on their first encounter, Aizawa could be certain that the young man had the makings of a truly great hero. Running towards the Dagoba Municipal Beach, the teenager Midoriya Izuku was wearing his tracksuit. The child was traveling there since he saw an adult who was fairly slender and blonde. Hey, All Might! Exclaimed Izuku, his voice full of joy. With a startled, huh? All Might spit blood from his teeth. Who's that? It looked like there were two persons on the view deck, which extended across the shoreline. Huh? No way, All Might. Where? Izuku froze, almost revealing to two strangers the true shape of All Might. Hey, say it with me again. Sorry, wrong person. Oh my, I apologize, incorrect person, Izuku retorted. What? Ah. I was hoping to see him. There was a sigh of relief from the 8th and 9th holders of One for All. Izuku apologized for that and said, I'm here. What did you want to tell me? All Might held out his fist and said, first off, congrats on getting accepted. Izuku gave his teacher a fist bump and grinned, saying, thank you. I couldn't have done what I did without you. Just so you know, I kept my relationship with you a secret from the school. Are you the kind of person who would consider that to be dishonest? I did not serve as a judge. I appreciate your concern, but I'm still having trouble processing the reality that I'm traveling to the United States of America. Izuku remarked, I'm also surprised to find that you were teacher there too, of all places. That's the reason you came here, then? Yes, I was unable to inform anyone prior to the school's announcement. It so occurred that UA made me a job offer. At the same time that I was trying to find a replacement. That makes sense, Izuku replied. You were originally planning on choosing one of the students, maybe, one student that happened to stand out from the rest, one gifted with an amazing quirk. And you fit all those qualifications, responded All Might. You stand out because you have the heart of a hero, you possess a spirit of self-sacrifice, and you have a healing factor that can withstand One for All's kickback. However, I can only extract 20% of the power without hurting myself. Much more, and the force will fracture my body. I have no control over it at all. There's no way around that, All Might remarked. It would be like asking someone to perform a trick where they couldn't even control their sudden tail growth. In addition, you shouldn't worry because your healing factor is really beneficial. Yeah, about that, Izuku replied. But why was I required to clean the beach at all? You mentioned that my body wasn't ready, but shouldn't my capacity for healing have been sufficient to make up for it? This is the reason, All Might said, pulling out his phone and grinning, showing Izuku the photo of him cleaning the beach during the first week. Even though your physique was lean muscle during that time, I needed to train your body to become more durable in order to take on One for All. Your slender physique might not have been able to take the physical repercussion, If we weren't careful, your limbs could have been ripped off, despite the fact that you possessed a healing factor. Remember that your oddity is healing rather than regeneration. Well, I certainly as hell don't want that, the green-haired lad said, staring at his arms. Then, he remembered back to his training, and then to Katsuki, his friend who ended up training because of him. Oh. Well, at least I can still boast about my physical prowess, right? All Might laughed at his pun and said, that's true, after everything you went through, in the end things were all right, or should I say, All Might. Izuku grinned even though he was rolling his eyes. Right now you're between 0% and 20%, that's the limit you can reach with having to rely on your healing factor to fix yourself, All Might stated when she grabbed a few empty cans of spray paint. But once you've reached a higher limit past 20%, say 100%, you'll be able to draw on One for All's full power without having to even think about your healing factor. Mastery? How? Izuku inquired. You will be able to move power more freely the more a vessel is trained. Like this, All Might said, abruptly changing into a muscular being and stomping on the paint cans as if they were made of paper. Whoa! Izuku exclaimed, amazed. Are you sure that's All Might? Not at all. How come he arrived here? The holders of One for All winced. Let's go, Midoriya Shonen, All Might exclaimed as he abruptly turned to flee. Yes, ma'am. He may be a cool hero, but All Might can be a really huge idiot at times. Well, I shouldn't anything, I'm pretty sure he has his reasons, Izuku said, grinning, as he shook his head and rushed after his master. Even though he had aced the test and been told he would get into UA no matter what, Izuku was a little bored that 8:37 a.m. morning. He had nothing to do until classes started, and while he continued to perform his training regimens, he was at his physical best and couldn't really improve on that. Izuku was lying on his bed contemplating his options when his phone rang. When he answered, he was shocked to see that Juru Kyoka had called. Hey, Juru, what's up? Kyoka answered, hey nerd, I'm bored and I was wondering if you were free to hang together today. Izuku remarked, what a coincidence, I'm bored myself. Wanna hit Wookiees? Kyoka inquired, you mean the shopping mall in Kiyoshi Ward? Well, that place is pretty huge, yeah sure, why not? Mind if I bring a friend? Izuku answered, the more the merrier. Alright, is 11 o'clock a good time? Yup, I'll meet you at the train station, see ya there. Izuku put down his phone and hung up. Let's see, 8:40, got about 3 hours before I meet up with Juru, might as well do some reps while waiting. Before long, 11 a.m. had arrived, and Izuku was waiting for Juru at the Tatooine train station. The boy had on a pair of dark blue denim trousers, red running shoes, and a dark green t-shirt that appeared to be half a size too small for his large build. Juru greeted Izuku with a, hey nerd, as she went. The punk girl had on a black choker around her neck, a pair of skinny black trousers, the same boots she wore to the exam, and a light blue t-shirt underneath a black and white striped jacket. After saying, I was wondering when you were gonna show up, Izuku gestured to the female standing behind Kyoka. Mind introducing us? Accompanying the punk girl was a somewhat taller girl with her hair done up in a spiky ponytail. She was dressed in a thin violet jacket over a pink V-neck t-shirt, skinny light blue trousers, and white running shoes. This is Yaoyorozu Momo, Juru introduced herself. She's going to UA in April, just like us. The ponytail girl accepted the greenette's extended handshake, albeit a little reluctantly. Kyoka saw this, but she just put it down to the fact that they were strangers. The girl with the earphone jack also noticed how strong Izuku was and how nothing was left up to the girl's imagination by his tight shirt. But Kyoka shook her head at these ideas. How in the hell? Momo said, nice to meet you, Midoriya-san. Yaoyorozu. Izuku pondered. Why is that name so recognizable? Anyway, Kyoka interrupted the adolescent with green hair, jolting him out of his reverie. Let's go, our train's here. The train carrying the three teenagers arrived at the Kiyoshi Ward. It was about 11:30 when they got off, and because they had to go a little way to the shopping mall, by the time they arrived, it would be lunchtime. As the three teenagers strolled around, Kyoka asked, "So, where should we go first?" Izuku remarked, "I heard a new cafe opened up here, you wanna check it out?" Kyoka answered, "Why not?" Momo continued, "It's also noon. We ought to grab some lunch." After arriving at the cafe and going inside, the three discovered a cafe, bistro with a rustic Spanish interior design. The design of the cafe was breathtaking. The walls were made of stone and brick, and hanging lights were suspended from the ceiling. The cafe had about 25 decorated tables that could seat 4 people each. However, the focal point of the room was the counter, which had multiple coffee makers operated by lone individuals behind it. The coffee makers came to life as soon as the man behind the counter waved his hands. Metal spoons and cups drifted around the machines on their own, enabling the barista to make multiple cups of coffee at once. It was fortunate that there wasn't a huge queue of people waiting for beverages and orders. Kyoka exclaimed, "What? Is that Magnetron?" Momo said, "The Magnet Hero?" Izuku took note and remarked, "Yeah, that's him. I'd recognize those blue and red gloves anywhere." Magnetron. A peculiarity. Magnetism. Although his influence is restricted to a specific radius, this hero can control any kind of magnetic metal. The three teenagers in queue soon had their opportunity to place an order. After placing their orders, Izuku began to probe the Magnet Hero non-stop. He even launched into one of his renowned grumbling bouts. Momo and the Magnet Hero started to perspire as Kyoka merely rolled her eyes and gave the teenager an upside-down head smack. "Sorry, he gets like this when he's around heroes." Magnetron said, "It's okay, but still, one question at a time please," while he kept waving. "My fans deserve to know what they want." After that, the day continued like any other friend hangout would have, even if Momo was a little uncomfortable because Izuku was hardly acquainted with her. Nevertheless, they had a good time. As they came to know one another better, Izuku discovered that Momo had a quirk that allowed her to manufacture any inorganic material by using her lipids as a source. However, in order to produce what she desired, she needed to know the atomic structure. Izuku also talked about the strength-aiding quirk he recently discovered, and his healing factor. He clarified that some quirks might become apparent later in life and that he developed his strength quirk by working his body relentlessly until he eventually experienced an odd tingling in his arms. He concentrated on that and found that he could accumulate physical energy, which he could then use to transform his body into kinetic energy. Finally, Izuku explained, "Katsuki was really shocked when I told him this." Momo stated, "Who's Katsuki?" "Oh, he's our friend from back in our youth," Kyoka answered. "He's the blonde kid I mentioned, you know, the one with a shitty attitude?" Izuku gave this a sly smile. The talk went on, touching on topics like eccentricities, bravery, the United States of America, and their primary objective. The youngsters eventually had to part ways and head home at the end of the day. Juru Kyoka was lying in bed that night and all she could think about was Izuku's toned figure. The girl's face began to flush as a few seductive ideas passed through her head. The girl needed a particularly cold shower, so she bolted from her bed and hurried to the bathroom. Jogging through the corridors of UA, Midoriya Izuku exclaimed, "Class 1A, 1A, 1A. Where the hell is my classroom? Senior year." He eventually located the entrance to Class 1A after some time. "This door is huge. Is it for accessibility or something?" Izuku was right to be astounded. The classroom door was more than 15 feet tall. Did the class have a giant? Izuku clasped his hands together and said to himself, "I just hope I won't have to deal with 4 eyes." Izuku opened the door and said, "Please, if there is some sort of unknown force out there, please help me. Don't put your feet on the desk." Izuku spotted you-know-who, and he yelled in his head. Bakugo Katsuki addressed the teenager, saying, "Huh, why not, my feet hurt from walking all the way here." Izuku thought, at least he has Kachan here to keep him occupied. "Don't you think that's rude to the UA upperclassmen and the people who made that desk?" With a scornful tone, Katsuki said, "Nope. What junior high did you go to, you side character?" The teenager raised his head briefly before placing his hand on his chest. I attended Same Private Academy. My name is Iida Tenya. Katsuki growled. Same. So you're a damn elite, huh? Looks like I'll have fun beating the shit out of you. At these words, the teenager, Tenya, as he called himself, winced. You would threaten a fellow classmate? That's cruel. Do you truly aim to be a hero? From the doorway, Izuku yelled out, Lay off, Bakahatsu. You still have a -1 on me, remember? Oh, Deku, a sly Katsuki said. Don't worry, I'll get that one up soon. Then all heads turned to look at the smug bad boy near the door. Yo, looks like I'm early. Gradually approaching Izuku, Tenya greeted her with a, good morning. Izuku maintained a calm exterior, but on the inside he was terrified. Are you doing something? Stay away from here? Give up your stroll? Yep. I am from Same Private Academy. My name is... Izuku raised his palms. Whoa, stop, I heard. I'm Midoriya. Nice to actually meet you, I guess, Izuku replied. Midoriya-kun, you realized there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? Tenya responded. What? I had no idea, I misjudged you. I hate to admit it, but, despite your attitude, you are better than me. I apologize. To be honest, I was unaware of anything, but I shouldn't tell him that. Izuku then glanced to check who his classmates were in the classroom. Among the persons he saw and recognized was Jiro Kyoka's pal Yaoyorozu Momo. Izuku smiled in response to the ponytail girl's wave when she saw him standing in the doorway. Was the child he saw with 6 arms one of the children sent to Battle Center B? I guess he received a high enough score to pass. Izuku was more interested in a few of the other children than in the others. For example, one child had the head of a crow, depending on your point of view. A man who was seated next to Momo had hair that confused Izuku. It was red on the left side and white on the right. Izuku wondered if this had something to do with his peculiarity. There was a girl with pink skin, black sclera, yellow pupils, and a couple of horns protruding from her head. Oh, that curly hair! Joyfully cried Uraraka Ochako upon entering. Midoriya, you're really here. Jiro Kyoka accompanied the brunette. Yo, Midoriya. Izuku turned to meet the users of the earphone jack Quirk and the zero-gravity Quirk with a smile. Hey Uraraka, Jiro. Ochako raised and lowered her right palm to emphasize her point, saying, You passed, just like President Mike said. Of course you did. That punch was amazing. Izuku noticed that both of the females looked good in the school uniform and thought to himself, hey, they both look good. Izuku was a little preoccupied that he didn't even understand most of what Uraraka was saying, something about the teachers or some sort of admission ritual. Go somewhere else if you want play at being friends. Izuku turned to face the yellow caterpillar figure and looked down, then let out a mental yell. What the heck? Reason for his presence? This must be an awful jokes. Unidentified power? Located here are you? HEELLLLLLLPP. Tenya, Kyoka, and Ochako all turned to see a disheveled-looking man enclosed in a yellow sleeping bag. The man pulled out a juice packet, took a sip, and stated, This is the hero course. He then got up and unzipped himself from his sleeping bag. Okay. It took you 8 seconds before you got quiet. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. Izuku thought gloomily as the man entered the classroom, Don't tell me. The man introduced himself as Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. Nice to meet you. I'm doomed. Izuku shouted to himself. It seems that his peers had the same astonishment as the child with green hair. The man appeared disheveled. His gaunt features suggested that he hadn't slept well for a few days, and his vacant eyes said that he didn't want to be there. Aizawa pulled out a PE and added, It's kind of sudden. Clothes that were in his sleeping bag. But please proceed to your locker rooms, you'll find PE uniforms like this one. Please put one on and meet me at the track field. In the meantime, one of the males in the class turned to face Midoriya and said a single word, Midoriya. Everyone in Class 1A exclaimed, A Quirk assessment test? Uraraka inquired, what about the orientation and entrance ceremony? Responses from his students to Aizawa's statement, if you're going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, were divided. UA's selling point in how unrestricted its school traditions are. That's also how the teachers run their classes. Once more, there were a range of responses to Aizawa's remarks. Some expressed comprehension, some surprise, and others amazement. UA, this really is a different kind of school. It didn't follow the regular curriculum. Aizawa took up a handheld device and asked, you kids have been doing these since junior high, too, right? Physical fitness tests where you weren't allowed to use your quirks? The country still uses averages taken from results from students not using their quirks. It's not rational. Well, the Ministry of Education is just procrastinating. Then Aizawa gave a loud yawn. You'll be taking these tests, but with your unique characteristics, Aizawa added, tossing Katsuki a softball. You got the most villain points on the practical exam Bakugo. How far was your softball throw in junior high? The user with the explosive quirk replied, 67 meters. Aizawa said, then, try doing it now but your quirk. You're free to do anything as long as you stay within that circle. Hurry up. Give it all you've got. All right then, Katsuki replied after stretching a little. Rearrange his arm back and hurled the ball, saying, I'll just add a little explosiveness in my throw. Die. Izuku only stared at his pal as the explosion sent the ball upward. Izuku watched the ball fly a long way and asked, die? First, determine your personal maximum, Aizawa said, displaying the distance on his portable gadget. That is the most rational way to form the foundation of a hero. The computerized voice on Aizawa's handheld device said, 795.7 meters. The amount on exhibit astounded the students. Whoa, it almost reached 800 meters, exclaimed the fair-haired man with a black lightning bolt in his hair. Seriously? This girl with pink skin exclaimed, what's this? It kinda looks like fun. A boy with straight black hair exclaimed, we can use our quirks as much as we want, as expected from the hero course. Looking at the students, Aizawa commented, it looks fun, huh? Izuku thought, damn it. That wasn't the right thing to say. A racer will undoubtedly pull a stunt. You have 3 years as students to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? Aizawa asked with a smile that made the student uneasy but also had a spooky, eerie quality. All right, let's make this really then. Whoever comes last in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential and will be punished with expulsion. And there it is, Izuku grinned gloomily. I simply feel sorry for the last person to enter. I'm hoping Uraraka and Juru can handle this on their own. Huh. A few pupils flinched in fear at that point. Aizawa yanked at his hair and gave a menacing smile, saying, we're free to do what we want about the circumstances of our students. Welcome to UA's hero course. Who will be the last to leave? Ochako inquired. But it's the first day of school. No, even if it wasn't, this is too unfair. Aizawa answered, natural disasters, big accidents, and selfish villains. Calamities whose times or place can't be predicted. Japan, no. The whole world with covered with unfairness. Heroes are the one who reverse those situations. If you wanted to go talk with your friends at some hangout place after school, too bad. Izuku thought, he's really laying it on thick. Eraserhead is the type of man who would definitely single me out, so I just hope he doesn't do that here. For the next 3 years, UA will do all it can to hit you with one hardship after another. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Aizawa stated. Overcome it with all you've got. All right, demonstration's over. The real thing starts now. Izuku surveyed her surroundings and first test, a 50-meter run. One for all, was directed towards Izuku's feet. He decided that 20% would be sufficient, as 100% would have been excessive. With a thrust, he accelerated and moved forward in just 2 steps. Katsuki trailed him at 3.13 seconds, but he managed to reach 1.49 seconds. Oi DEKU! Exclaimed Katsuki. Don't get ahead of yourself just because you figured out your real quirk. You'll only get a spot below me, understood? Izuku smirked and glared. You actually think you'll get that one up on me? I'd like to see you try, Bakahatsu. As bad boy and bad attitude clashed, Aizawa used this as an opportunity to inflame his students even further. You should take some pointers from these two, while I don't condone this kind of behavior. Their rival-like attitude is a good example of striving to reach the top. Like I said, if you want to stay in UA, you'll need to push yourselves even further than you think. After their squabble, Izuku took some time to observe the peculiarities of his classmate. The bespectacled teen's peculiarity was obvious because it was right there on his calves, so he already knew what Four Eyes was capable of. Izuku pointed out that Iida might increase his running pace by using the motors in his legs. The female who ran hop next to Iida had characteristics of a frog, the kid with green hair remarked. The following runners were a blonde with a large tail and Uraraka. The child with the tail used his extra appendage as a spring to give himself an extra push, whereas Uraraka used her peculiarity to make her shoes and garments light. The girl with the pink complexion and the little boy with the belt were the next runners. He's that boy from the practical exam, don't you think? Izuku thought to himself. I believe he needs a focusing device because he can shoot lasers from that belt, and his power cannot be contained without it. Izuku discovered that the blonde could only shoot the laser for a brief moment at a time before getting a stomachache as he considered these facts. Why in the world did he say that? Grip strength. Second test. Izuku murmured, focusing one for all into his hand. This'll be easy. Izuku then squeezed on the grip test equipment and grinned at his weight, which was 639 kilograms, saying, just like breaking an egg. Even if his body can heal, 20% was still strong enough to earn decent grades. If necessary, he would only need to use 100% in an emergency. It wasn't worth losing stamina for. He turned to face Shoji, the six-armed boy, who used 3 of his arms to get 540 kilograms on the grip machine. Then he observed the way Shoji's hands blended together. So, not only can he form other body parts on his hands, he can fuse all 3 of them together. I wonder if he can. Slap Juru Kyoka appeared from behind the youngster and gave him an upside-down head smack before Izuku could begin another round of his renowned muttering. Juru had a foreboding tone and warned, if you start muttering even once, I'll tell everyone about the pink tutu. Izuku covered his lips with his hands right away. It was, ha ha ha, that Izuku heard Katsuki giggle. Pink tutu, ha ha ha. In an attempt to avoid embarrassing himself, Izuku simply glanced about, trying to figure out what the other person's peculiarities were. He observed a somewhat large-built child with spiky brown hair popping a few of sugar cubes into his mouth and then using the grip test gadget. At over 400 kilograms, his score was equally impressive as the child with 6 arms. Test 3. Long jump while standing. In fact, most of them performed far better on this exam than the child with the laser quirk. Uraraka utilized her zero-gravity to float directly over the sandbox. Katsuki launched himself with a few of blasts, and the frog girl leapt over it with ease. Izuku just utilized the same tactic from the 50-meter dash. He jumped straight over the sandbox while concentrating 20% on both of his feet. Test 4. Side steps repeated. This wasn't that difficult. All he needed to do was jump with 20% of his attention on his feet. Even if his one-for-all energy concentration was a tad slow, he still produced respectable outcomes. Iida's method was just peculiar. Not my, but Midoriya Izuku's words. The teenager had brought his knees together to make his engines face opposing ways, but the effect made him appear like a sissy. Test 5. Throw a ball by using her unique ability to make the ball weightless. Uraraka was able to win this test and receive the highest possible score when Aizawa displayed an infinite sign on his handheld device. It was now Izuku's time to throw the ball. 20% might not be sufficient. While it is strong, it lacks the power I would prefer. I'll just use my arm and call it a day. Oh, screw it. The ball didn't fly in the air as he had anticipated when Izuku tossed it after pulling back his arm. The artificial voice on Aizawa's handheld device said, 87 meters. What the devil occurred? As Izuku looked down at his hand, he pondered. I think I used one for all just now. Hold on, don't tell me. Aizawa replied, I erased your quirk, from the side. Yes, he would, Izuku thought, his expression falling. When Izuku turned to face his teacher, Aizawa gave him a searing gaze and his reddish eyes glowed. Aizawa's hair and scarf appeared to float in midair, and Katsuki caught sight of goggles encircling his neck. Those goggles, wait, exclaimed Katsuki. Erased. I see, that guy's the erasure hero. Eraserhead. A boy with red hair that was spiky asked, Eraser? I don't know him. I've heard of him, a female with long black hair remarked. He's an underground hero. I've only seen him on blogs, remarked the boy with blonde hair and a black lightning bolt on one side of his head. They say he hates the media so he only works at night. Aizawa remarked, I thought you were capable of doing better. You were trying to use your entire arm, weren't you? After bringing Izuku in like a prized catch with the capture cloth around his neck, the erasure hero just peered into Izuku's eyes. I don't really care if you have a healing quirk or not, but that kind of destructive power would be too much in a normal setting. You seriously need to learn how to exercise control when using that strength, or you might end up killing someone, hero or villain, by mistake. That's when Izuku recalled what All Might had told him. With one punch, I can level an entire city. I used to think that no one should have that kind of power, but I soon learned to control it, and I use this power every day to help those who are in need. The more you train a vessel, the more you'll be able to move the power freely. Then Aizawa released Midoriya. I've returned your quirk, you have 2 more turns for the ball throw. Hurry up and get it over with. Midoriya, his hair dangling over his eyes, considered Aizawa's words for a long time. He considered All Might's comments as well. Control, Izuku thought to himself as he searched for a solution. I'll just use my fingers then. Since the beginning, I've used my entire hand, including my knuckles, but with the current power, that's just too much. I made a vow to never injure anyone again. I promise to uphold the promise I made to you, Mom. Izuku pulled his arm back, concentrating his strength in his fingers. It will take more work for me to control this power. Smash! Izuku exclaimed as he launched the ball into the air, enough force to send the wind wildly spinning for a brief moment. Aizawa saw the throw's distance by glancing down at the device in his hand. The computerized voice on Aizawa's handheld device said, 1.17 kilometers. Izuku said, Hey sensei, raising his hand, which began to heal very immediately. How's that for control? Aizawa smirked and said, Cheeky brat. Since Bakugo has already concluded, let's proceed to the next individual, Aizawa stated, glancing at the adolescent with sandy blonde hair. Or do you think you can do better? The teenager grinned. Katsuki stood back in the circle and gripped the softball more tightly, saying, Of course I can, give me that ball. The boy cried, reeling back his hand, Oi, Deku. Don't cry if I get one place above you, and threw the ball. Go to hell. Izuku started to perspire. Go to hell? The computerized voice on Aizawa's handheld device said, 1.17 kilometers. With bafflement, Katsuki exclaimed, Huh? What? Katsuki looked at Izuku in disbelief, saying, We got the same score, dumbass. The tests proceeded as usual, including the long-distance run, seated toe touch, and sit-ups. After each test was completed, Aizawa gathered the pupils. Aizawa. It's a waste of time to explain verbally, so I'll show you the results all at once. The total is simply the marks you got from each test. He stated, activating a hologram on his handheld that displayed a list of the pupils and their scores. These were the outcomes that followed. Momo Yaoyorozu number 1. 2 Todoroki Shoto 3 Bakugo Katsuki and Midoriya Izuku, tied. 4 Iida Tenya 5 Tokiyami Fumikage 6 Shoji Mezzo. 7 Jiroda Shishida 8 Mashirao Ojiro 9 Kirishima Eijiro. Ashido Mina 10 11 Ochako Uraraka 12 Koda Koji 13 Rikido Sato. 14 Asui Suyu 15 Aoyama Yuga 16 Shirohanta 17 Kyoka Juru 18 Denki Kaminari Hagakuri Toru 19 Ashido Mina turned to the unseen girl standing next to her and said, "Sorry, but hey, cheer up. There's always next year, right?" The invisible girl gave the pink-skinned girl a hug and sobbed, "It's okay sniffle. I'll be fine sniffle." Incidentally, I made up the entire expulsion story. Aizawa grinned evilly. That was just a rational deception to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. However, of course, Momo replied. It was clearly a lie. It should have been obvious if you'd have thought about it a little. Not that the kids noticed much, but they also had no intention of speaking up. The boy with the strange-looking elbows said, "That was a little nerve-wracking, huh?" A young person with spiky red hair exclaimed, "I'll take up the challenge anytime." "Human," Izuku murmured. "Tied again? Seriously? That's a damn shame," Katsuki murmured, reaching for Izuku's PE collar. "Besides, don't think for a second that just because you have a strength quirk that you're better than me." Izuku took hold of Katsuki's arm. "I don't think I'm better, I know I'm better." Katsuki exclaimed, "You wanna go?" The two teenagers butted heads, and Izuku shot out, "Sure, how about I take you there myself?" The other pupils were unsure about how to handle this situation. But these boys were her best pals, so Kyoka shook her head in shame. Thus, the owner of the earphone jack quirk made the decision to end their argument by sticking her quirk into each of their earholes. Aizawa thanked the punk girl in silence. Aizawa pleaded, "Break it up now, please." With a, "Yes, sir," the guys merely nodded while scratching their ears. Aizawa declared, "With that, we're done officially done here. There are handouts with the curriculum and such in the classroom, so when you get back, look them over." After, Izuku went to the bike racks in front of the school as soon as classes concluded. The lad felt a hand on his shoulder as he unchained his bike. The greenette said, "Hey Juru," without turning around. "Need something?" "Indeed," the punk girl replied. "Wanna hang out? Momo invited me and Uraraka to this cafe uptown." "I'm sorry, but I have to go see my mom," Izuku remarked, glancing at Kyoka. "You know how it is." Kyoka simply gave a head nod. "All right, I really wanted you to come along. Bakugo couldn't come because he had something to take care of. Send me the location of the cafe, and maybe I'll try to catch up when I'm done." "All right. Say hi to your mum for me." Izuku mounted his bike and pedaled off, nodding his head. Rather than heading home in the afternoon, Midoriya just rode his bike to Musutafu General Hospital. "Now that I'm a hero student mum," Izuku remarked as he sat down beside his mother's bed. "It's really cool too, I get to use my quirk freely. Well, technically I need a teacher to supervise me, but it's still awesome. I made some really great friends too, and Jiru's my classmate again. I bet you'd like to meet her one day too. She says hi, by the way." A knock on the door was heard while he was speaking with his mother. "I hope you don't mind me barging in like this." "You're always welcome, Dr. Shiroyama, it's fine," Izuku replied as he got to his feet to welcome the physician. "Is my mum still improving, doc?" The physician grinned and nodded her head. "She's in good shape. I still can't put an exact date on when she'll wake up, but recently I've seen signs that she might just come out of her coma within this year." When he heard this, Izuku's expression lit up, but then he abruptly became serious. "I just wish I could use my healing to help her in some way." "Yes, and you've been a great help here at the hospital by putting that healing ability to good use," answered Dr. Shiroyama. "I just wish it could do more than just healing physical injuries," Izuku stated. "Yeah, it's unfortunate, but since a coma isn't a physical injury but more of a one that affects the mind, psychologically, there isn't much that your healing ability can do," according to Dr. Shiroyama. "But cheer up, I'm sure if Inko knew about you helping out here in the hospital during your visits, she'd be even more proud of you." "Thanks, Doc, I needed that." The hero pupils had regular courses the next day, including English, which present Mike was in charge of. After the excitement of yesterday's quirk assessment test, it was very dull, so dull, in fact, that a few pupils were ready to nod off. The resident punk girl, Juru Kyoka, was so bored that she just wanted to do something adventurous instead of this. Glancing to her left, she noticed Katsuki was also bored out of his mind, cradling his head in the palm of his left hand. Izuku was taking notes despite being bored behind the sandy blonde. The voice hero calmly said, "All right now. Which one of these English sentences is wrong?" Asterisk quiet. "Hey everyone, let's start this party," the voice exclaimed, sounding a little too eager. Kyoka grinned to herself when she reached her friend with the green hair with her earphone jack. Izuku gave a start and sprung as she stabbed the appendage into his leg. "Oh, present Mike," he said. "Good on you for volunteering. Which sentence is wrong?" Izuku got up and answered the question. He then sat down, saying, "Number 4, the relative pronoun is in the wrong place." Then, giving Kyoka a fierce look, he drew a line to highlight the "You're dead" gesture and placed his index finger to his neck. Kyoka simply jabbed her tongue at him. Katsuki, at the girl's left, was trembling and struggling to contain his laughter. Thanks to that one guy 13 for the inspiration behind this scenario. I apologize if I didn't ask for permission to mention it, but I'll do you a silent favor by recommending Rhythm of a Hero, one of the best Izuku Juru fanfics I've ever read. I urge you to check it out, it's fantastic. AN number 3. In agreement. Jiroda Shishida. Since Jiroda was the closest I could have gone to include a beast character in my tale without having them be an OC, Hank McCoy, the huge blue genius furball, has long been one of my favorite characters from the X-Men series. I'm pretty sure a lot of you feel the same way I do about Mineta. I'm sorry, but I really wanted the beast in this chapter so hard. I really like him too, and I wish he'd have more screen time in the forthcoming anime episodes. If you guys wanted Shiozaki Ibara or another student from Class 1B to replace the grape-headed pervert, then so be it. Indeed, it appears that there is some past between Izuku and Aizawa-sensei. I'll attempt to incorporate their somewhat sparse backstory into the flashbacks in the upcoming chapters. Here's a little something extra for you boys and gals before you head out. Things we should have seen but haven't seen in the Quirk apprehension test. Yaoyorozu developed a cannon that left Izuku and Katsuki speechless. She loaded a soft ball inside, lighted a short fuse, and let the ball fly with a loud boom. The ponytailed girl finished second in the ball throw, covering a distance of 28 kilometers. Izuku said, "Oi, Aizawa-sensei," still in disbelief, "is that even allowed?" Aizawa answered, "Anything goes as long as you stay inside the circle. And besides, she used her quirk to create that cannon, so I can let it slide." Katsuki was still staring at his newfound reality. What the hell? First she makes a pull to vault over the sandbox, then she makes a vice clamp for the grip test, and now this. Everything is within her peculiar capabilities, Aizawa answered. Now shut up, Midoriya, you're next on the ball throw. Izuku and Katsuki were unable to express themselves since Yaoyorozu had made a scooter specifically for the long run. Izuku asked, "Should I even say something about this?" Katsuki questioned, "This has to be against the rules in some way, right?" Aizawa remarked, "Again, since she used her quirk, I can allow it." Izuku and Katsuki gave the blankest look they could manage in response, saying, "Okay." How is their friendship going, and where did Juru find this girl? Izuku pondered. Mostly because of an empty stomach, Midoriya Izuku was a little fatigued. Izuku's lack of food was the reason for his shortness of breath. His healing factor required a lot of fuel to operate well. He was riding his bike slowly towards the cafe that Kyoka had told him about around 4:15 p.m. Izuku noticed that the cafe in Wookiees resembled Magnetron's cafe almost exactly when he arrived. Then he read the name of the cafe on the sign. La Luna Cafe and Bistro. To make it easier to read, it was printed in cursive. Izuku remarked, "Fancy," fits Momo's preference to a T, while securing his bike to a neighboring bike rack. Making his way inside, Izuku noted some key differences to Magnetron's cafe. One was that this cafe was larger and there were more tables. Another was that this cafe had a second floor, and another was that there were 2 front counters and had several people working behind them. Looking around, he saw Kyoka at a table by window waving to him. He walked over and noticed that Ochako wasn't seating at the table, but he also noted one more thing. What is he doing here? Greetings, Midoriya-kun, Iida Tenya said as he stood up. Hey. Izuku said as he looked to Kyoka. I thought it was just us? Oh yeah, about that. Uraraka invited him over, Kyoka said. By the way, where is she? Izuku asked. Restroom, Kyoka replied. Oh, Deku. You're here, Ochako said as walked up behind Izuku. Deku? Izuku questioned. Yeah, I heard Bakugo call you that at the fitness test. Uraraka said. It's probably your nickname, right? Yeah, but it's more of a name that he uses to make fun of me, Izuku said as he sat down. An insult name? Tenya said. Oh, sorry, Ochako said. I didn't know. It's all right, Izuku said. I'm used to it anyway. It's kinda like how I call him, Bakahatsu. But, Ochako said. Deku, kinda sounds like, Dekiru, so I kinda like it. Dekiru, that means, you can do it, huh? Sounds good, Izuku thought. Call me Deku then. Kyoka then sent Izuku a knowing look, to which boy just returned with a shake of his head. The punk girl wasn't done, however. She got on her phone and decided to talk to Izuku via her chat app. Kyoka. You and I both know the true meaning of that name. Izuku. It's better if they don't know. I'm not proud of my former life. K. Other kids, the ones you fought, still know that name. I know, but if they what's good for them, they'll stay away. K. I'm talking about the gangs, not the punks. I'll keep her safe. I'll be damned if I let anything like that happen again. Their conversation was ended when a waitress walked up to the table and presented several cake slices and a fresh cup of coffee, probably for Izuku since everyone else had their drinks already. The teens spent their time just talking and getting to know one another that afternoon. Izuku even found that Iida wasn't an ass, he was just really earnest. He had the kind of attitude that would make a good leader. Along the way, they actually became, somewhat, friends in a way. I just hope Katsuki won't mind if we another member to the gang. 3 weeks before classes started at UA, we see Midoriya Izuku sitting on the sofa in his apartment. In front of him was a coffee table and there were several papers and letters on it. Akatani Kojira, Izuku's uncle and legal guardian, walked by in his way to the kitchen. It was a rare off day for the martial arts trainer, and he was using this day off to look after his nephew. You sure are busy at this time of day, Izuku-kun. What are you up to? Oh, I need to go to City Hall to get my Quirk registration for the clothing allowance, Izuku said, but then it suddenly dawned on him about one for all. But, wait, I'm already registered as Healing Factor. Gah, what am I gonna do? If you're talking about your strength augmentation quirk, Kojira said, you can simply re-register and update your status. You can do that? Izuku asked. Yes, Kojira replied. Everyone is usually examined and registered all at once when they enter elementary and junior high, right? But there are cases where people discover their quirks aren't what they thought they were. So you're allowed to update it once or twice. For example, a person who can send out water from their body can discover that they're actually turning the moisture in the air into water. Izuku just nodded his head while listening to his uncle's explanation. The registration office won't accept outrageous changes though, so if I were you, I'd better come up with a plausible sounding explanation when you tell them that your healing quirk is actually an add-on to a latent strength augmentation quirk that you recently discovered, Kojira said. I've known Toshinori-san for quite a while, so please try to keep your quirk on the down low, alright? Will do, Uncle Kojira, and thanks. Izuku said. You're welcome. Oh, by the way, I saw those 2 girls on your Instagram page, Kojira said in a teasing manner. You sly devil you. 2 girls at once, what would your mother say? Izuku retaliated this by lunging and aiming a punch at his uncle while sporting a smiling death glare. Yurusei. Kojira, however, caught Izuku's intended punch and threw him back. Is that all you can do? I thought I trained you better. That morning, The neighbors who lived next to the Midoriya, Akatani apartment, could only sigh in distress. The uncle and nephew were at it again with their usual sparring matches. But this time, the uncle must have said something to upset the nephew because all they could hear from the boy was a string of curses that could make even the most hardened villain blush. We now go back to the present date where Midoriya Izuku is sitting backwards on his chair while talking to the beast Quirk user who sat behind him. The students of Class 1A were waiting on their next teacher now that they were in the afternoon period. "Man, lunch rush's cooking is too delicious," Izuku said with a smile. "I couldn't get enough of it." "That's quite rich coming from you, Midoriya Dono," Jiroda said. "You practically devoured 4 bowls of katsudon in one sitting." Izuku smiled and laughed sheepishly. "Yeah, that's the thing about my quirk, it requires me to eat a lot of food just to stay fueled. And it's not like you didn't eat 3 servings of curry rice yourself." "Hey now, I am a growing beast you know," Jiroda said. "I need sustenance as well." Suddenly a knock was heard on the door which caught the students' attention. "I am," All Might said as he breezed through the doorway, coming through the door like a normal person. What part of that entrance was normal? Izuku mentally face-palmed, but still, it was just the coolest thing to have the #1 hero All Might as their teacher. He then turned around in his seat. The students brightened up and marveled at the sight of the #1 hero in their classroom. "It's All Might," Kaminari said. "Wow, he really is a teacher," Kirishima added. "That's a costume from the Silver Age, isn't it?" Tsuyu said. All Might then strutted into the classroom. "Its style is so different. It's giving me goosebumps," Ojiro said. "I teach basic hero training," All Might said. "It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You'll be taking the most units in this subject." From where he sat, Izuku smiled. "And this is where I can prove myself even more." All Might then struck a pose. "Let's get right into it. This is what we'll do today, combat training." "Combat," Katsuki said with a wide grin. "Training," Izuku said with a smirk. "And to go along with that are these." All Might said. He pointed to the wall which opened out to reveal 20 individual cases marked 1 to 20. Costumes made, based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. After you change, gather in ground beta. "Yes, sir. They say that clothes make a man," All Might said as the students of Class 1A walked into the faux city. "But in this case it's the costume that makes the hero, because from now on you are heroes." "Deku-kun," Ochako exclaimed. "Your costume is awesome." Midoriya Izuku smiled. His hero costume consisted of a dark green full-body jumpsuit with red stripes running down the sides. He had on black shoulder supporters and black leg bracers, a utility belt that had 4 pouches, and around his neck was a metallic face, breath guard. He also sported a pair of red, heavy-duty, running shoes and a pair of white fingerless boxing gloves. "Thanks," Izuku said. "My mom helped me design it when I was younger. I just recently made some modifications before sending my final design to a support company. It looks cool. Really down to earth," Ochako said as she rubbed the back of her head in slight embarrassment. "I should have written what I wanted. Mine ended up being a skin-tight bodysuit. It's embarrassing." "The hero course is awesome," Izuku said as he unintentionally stared. "No, snap out of it, you're no pervert that doesn't belong here." Meanwhile in Class B, a small kid with purple balls on his head sneezed. "She looks good though." Thankfully, the green-haired teen wasn't caught staring, mostly because everyone else was admiring the hero costumes of the others. "Well, you look good though," Izuku managed to get out. "I like the design, really original." Ochako already had a pink tint on her face because of her costume, so she was quite lucky for that. But she smiled nonetheless and uttered a light thank you. Izuku looked around and took note of everyone else's costumes. Jiroda's costume, however, was just a pair of pants and a pair of stylized goggles, shades, and around his neck was what looked to be a collar. For some reason Jiroda seemed a little taller. Izuku could have sworn he and the beast quirk user stood at the same height, but looking at him now it felt like he had grown a couple more inches. This caused the greenette to wonder if the beast's sudden growth spurt was part of his quirk. Whoa, she's quite daring, Izuku thought when he saw Momo's costume. Is a costume like that when allowed? As the students had finally gathered, All Might began his class. All right, it's time to start your battle training. Sir, Tenya said as he raised his hand. Wait, is that 4 eyes? Huh, his costume actually looks kinda cool. This is a battle center from the entrance exam, Tenya said. So will we be conducting urban battles again? Not quite, we're going to move ahead 2 steps. All Might said, holding up 2 fingers. Most of the time, when fighting villains, the fights take place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest. Backroom deals in this society filled with heroes. Truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Without basic training? Suyu asked. This is a real battle to understand those basics, however. The key this time is that there's no robot you can just beat up. The students then barraged All Might with several questions. How will wins and losses be determined? Leave it to Yaoyorozu to ask something smart. Can we beat them up anyway? Katsuki, no, will the punishment be expulsion like with Aizawa-sensei? Don't worry, All Might isn't like that. How shall we be split up? I hope it'll be in pairs. Doesn't this cape look fabulous? What the actual? Izuku thought, sparing a glance at the shining knight beside him. Calm down, I'll get to your questions, All Might said, looking a little excited, or was that distress? The pro-hero then pulled out a small sheet of paper. Now listen here. A script? Don't tell me this is his first time teaching? The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. The heroes need to either capture the villains or recover the nuclear weapon in the allotted time of 15 minutes. All Might then held up a box. Teams and opponents will determined by drawing lots. They're being decided so haphazardly? Tenya asked. There's nothing wrong with that, Izuku said. Pros often have to put together makeshift teams with heroes from other agencies. This is probably a scenario to mimic just that. I see. The discernment to look ahead, Tenya then bowed. Please pardon my rudeness. Asking questions isn't being rude. What's with you, Iida? I mean seriously. It's fine. Let's do this quickly. The following teams were. Team A. Midoriya Izuku and Uraraka Ochako. Team B. Todoroki Shoto and Shoji Mezzo. Team C. Yaoyorozu Momo and Jiro Kyoka. Team D. Bakugo Katsuki and Iida Tenya. Team E. Ashido Mina and Aoyama Yuga. Team F. Sato Rakido and Koda Koji. Team G. Kaminari Denki and Shishida Jiroda. Team H. Tokiyami Fumikage and Asui Suyu. Team I. Ojiro Mashirao and Hagakure Toru. Team J. Shiro Honta and Kirishima Eijiro. Wow, it must be fate, Ochako said. I'm counting on you, Deku-kun. Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Don't worry, I'll make sure we win. The first teams to fight will be, All Might said as he reached into the hero and villain boxes. These guys, All Might yelled. He pulled out a black and white ball from each box. Team A will be the heroes, and Team D will be the villains. Everyone else, please head to the monitor room. Yes, sir, oi, Deku, Katsuki said with glare and smirk. Prepare to lose. I was just about to say the same thing. Izuku said. He rammed his forehead on Katsuki's. As bad boy and bad attitude butted heads again, making her way to the monitor room. Jiro Kyoka could only facepalm at her friend's antics. Why can't they just be normal? Then again, they're less boring this way. All Might also couldn't help but share a little in the punk girl's embarrassment. I really have to work on his behavior more. All Might then ushered the villain and hero teams to a nearby building which would serve as the test area. All right. Villain team, go in first and set up, All Might said. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in, and the battle test will start. Yes, sir. Iida Shonen. Bakugo Shonen. Learn to think from the perspective of the villains. All Might said as the two made their way into the building. This is pretty close to a real battle. Go all out and don't be afraid to get hurt. Yes, sir. Tenya said. Tell that to the guy with a healing factor. Katsuki said as he pointed Izuku behind him. Of course, but things go too far, I will have to stop it for safety reasons, All Might added. Inside the building, we see Tenya and Katsuki walking up to a huge rocket-shaped bomb. Even if this is training, it pains me to become a villain, Tenya said. Oh, shut up, Katsuki said. What would your precious upperclassmen say if they heard you say that? They probably had to take the same battle training test too, you know. Tenya flinched. You're right, how could I have let such a thought enter my mind? The ones who studied before us must have been tasked to take one villain roles as well. I must follow in their stead if I truly wish to become a hero. Katsuki simply developed a tick mark on his forehead, as he rolled his eyes. The sandy blonde walked around the room and thought of something. Tenya then walked up to the bomb. So our job is to protect this? He then knocked on the so-called nuclear device. Oh, it's actually hollow on the inside. Hey, Katsuki said. Listen here, I've got a plan. Meanwhile, outside of the building we see Izuku and Ochako making out like crazy. Wait, what? No. That's not supposed to happen yet. Sorry about that. He. I'm getting ahead of myself. EHEM. Asterisk continue reading. The brunette and brunette were currently discussing their plans for marriage. Izuku turns and glares at the author. Will you focus on the damn story? Author shakes head repeatedly. Give me a moment. I think I need a cold shower. A few minutes later. Alright, forgetting all that. We see Izuku and Ochako discussing their plan on how to retrieve the bomb or otherwise capture the villains. You think that will work? Ochako asked. 60 to 70% I say, Izuku replied. Katsuki knows my fighting style all too well, so if we're lucky he's gonna come down and face me head-on. I can distract him, but you're gonna have to retrieve that bomb. I'll do it, Ochako said. Iida-kun is my only worry, he's too fast. Don't worry, as long as we stick to the plan, Izuku said as he put on his face guard. What could go wrong? I say nothing. We're a team, aren't we? Ochako said with ever so bubbly attitude. Let's do our best. Underneath his mask, Izuku smiled. Now, let's start the indoor person-to-person combat training with Team A and Team D. The voice of All Might could be heard through a speaker system. Meanwhile in the monitor room. Okay, everyone, you should think as well. Midoriya Shonen. Here, you are no more than a single student. All Might thought as he placed an earpiece in his auditory cavity. I'll have to grade you strictly, without playing favorites. At the test area building, we see Izuku and Ochako sneaking in through an open window. We've infiltrated successfully, Ochako whispered. There are a lot of blind spots here, so let's be careful, Izuku replied. The pair then spent some time sneaking around the building's second floor area while looking around and keeping check on their surroundings. Shouldn't be using too much power in here. Katsuki can take one my normal punches, but at 20%, I could seriously hurt him. There's also Iida and Uraraka here too. I can't be too reckless otherwise they could get hurt, never mind the fact that I can heal them anyway. I'll just try to focus on 5% or maybe even lower. Continuing their sneak approach, Izuku also thought about several strategies just in case Katsuki figures out part of their plans. He had at least 13 notebooks of carefully detailed quirks and applications. Izuku's ability to analyze situations could prove to be more handy than ever right here. While pondering on his thoughts, Izuku was suddenly alerted to the sound of clothes ruffling from what sounded like a jump. Then he saw Katsuki leap from behind a corner of the building. Die! Katsuki yelled as he extended his right arm. The sandy blonde then fired off an explosion that blew up as soon as it made contact with the wall. Izuku acted quickly. He grabbed Ochako and jumped back. He quickly let go of the girl and turned to face her. You alright? Ochako nodded and stood up. Katsuki waved away the dust cloud caused by his explosion. Come on Deku, don't dodge. With a smirk, Izuku turned to face his friend. I figured you'd come after me first. He looked to Ochako and gave her a look. The girl nodded and ran off. Katsuki saw this. So it's just you and me now, huh? Izuku cracked his knuckles. Yup, looks like it's you and me now. Meanwhile in the monitor room. A surprise attack from the start? Jiroda said in surprise. Bakugo, that's cheating. Kirishima said, pounded his fist into his palm. A surprise attack isn't manly at all. A surprise attack is a strategy, too. All Might said. They're in the middle of a real battle right now. Midori-kun dodged it. Mina exclaimed. There goes Bakugo, Kaminari said. He's just gonna rush into it? Back the test area. I won't do so much damage that this fight gets stopped, but I'm gonna get close. Katsuki yelled as lunged at Izuku. Izuku however dodged and grabbed Katsuki's right arm. Too easy. Izuku said as he then body slammed Katsuki into the ground. You always start with a right swing. As Katsuki hit the ground he grit his teeth in pain but smirked. I figured you would do that. Katsuki then aired his left arm at Izuku and fired off a relatively small explosion which kicked up a small dust cloud. Oh shit! Izuku yelled, barely getting enough time to jump back. When the dust settled, Izuku was still standing, okay, but was smoldering a little. I'm getting slow, I forgot to take that into account. In the monitor room. Whoa, that was awesome, Kaminari said. Midoriya was able to get an upper hand on Bakugo, Tokiyami said. But Bakugo-chan also got in a good hit as well, Tsuyu added. Yes, the ability to discern your opponent's attacks and then turning the situation around. Back in the test area building. So that's your plan, huh? Katsuki said. Send the gravity girl to try and get the bomb? Not gonna work. Yeah, I figured out your plan as well, Izuku said. TCH. Nothing gets by you, damn nerd. Katsuki said. It's one thing to keep you down here. It's another thing to count on 4 eyes to make sure Gravity Girl doesn't get the bomb. Izuku smirked. Well, I'll just have to beat down your ass so I can get it myself. Let's see you try. Katsuki said as he launched himself forward with an explosion. He then aimed a punch at Izuku's upper body with his left hand. Izuku saw and blocked this, but Katsuki retaliated with a swing from his right. The two teens then proceeded to exchange hit after hit by blocking, dodging, and parrying each blow with their own distinct martial arts style. In the monitor room. The students were awed by the display of Izuku and Katsuki's fighting skills. Even though they knew that both teens had tied for third place in the fitness test, watching them fight and display such an amazing skill set still left them with jaws wide open. Man, Sato said. Am I glad these two weren't put together as team. If they were, they'd practically be unstoppable. No kidding, Ojiro added. They possess the most destructive quirks among all of us. Yeah, that paired up with their fighting skills, Zero said. These two could likely give even a pro hero a run for their money. Test area building. With Tenya, we see the armored teen guarding the bomb as per instructed by his teammate. But as soon he heard a couple explosions downstairs, he immediately contacted the sandy blonde through his earpiece. Hey, Bakugo-kun. What's happening down there? Give me your status. Just shut up and defend. Deku's partner is coming your way. Stick to the plan, damn it. I'm really having a blast right now. Katsuki yelled as he shut off the earpiece. He hung up, Tenya said. Alright, stick to the plan. No doubt that Midoriya-kun possessed skills that only Bakugo-kun can fend off, but still, I feel so useless doing nothing here. Monitor room. What was Bakugo saying? Kirishima asked. Can't really tell with just the camera in a fixed position with no sound. He's talking to his partner over a small wireless radio. All Might explained. You can bring that plus the building's floor plan, and this capture tape. Once you wrap this around your opponent, it shows that you've captured them. The time limit is 15 minutes, Mina said. And the heroes don't know where the bomb is located, right? Yes. The heroes are clearly at a disadvantage here, Mina added. Heroes should be able to turn the tables on whatever predicament they're in, All Might said. Besides, didn't Aizawa-sensei tell you, too? You know, here we go. Plus Ultra. All Might yelled in chorus with the students. But then, Monsieur, Bakugo is, Aoyama said pointing to the monitor. All Might turned to see what it was. Test area building. Katsuki was now using his legs in tandem with his explosions to deliver hard kicks left and right. Izuku stopped blocking and tried to dodge. This caused the sandy blonde to gain a bit of an advantage for a while. Izuku took a few hits but was relatively okay enough to continue dodging. In tandem with his explosions, Katsuki was flying all over the place from the floor to the ceiling and from wall to wall. With those movements he also delivered and got a few good hits onto Izuku, who was blocking instead of dodging. Izuku managed to figure out Katsuki's attack pattern and his jumping though. He reached out his right hand and grabbed onto Katsuki's left bicep. He pulled the sandy blonde in and shouldered him in the gut. Had that been a normal person, they'd have been knocked out or would have at least puked their guts out. But Katsuki was a tough one. He took the blow easily but managed to stay on his feet without staggering even once. Izuku rubbed his shoulder. Man, that vest is thicker than it looks. Custom-made polymer and carbon fiber cloth, similar to Kevlar and Teflon, Katsuki replied. Costumes would be stupid without functionality, right? Oh, great, you just had to take my advice, Izuku said. He thought back to how he explained to Katsuki about costume functionality in his hero journals. Me and my big mouth. So, Katsuki said, should we stop playing around? Why not? Izuku replied. Feeling each other out is boring anyway. Monitor room. Don't you think you should stop this, All Might? Kaminari asked. Yeah, Bakugo and Midoriya are going too overboard, Kirishima added. It's fine for now, All Might replied, which put a bit of confusion in the students. But why? Hagakure asked. Midoriya could get seriously injured with those explosions. Midoriya Shonen has a healing factor, All Might said. Which is why Bakugo Shonen is going this far. He knows he can fight like this without worrying about Midoriya Shonen's safety. The worried students blew a sigh of relief. Besides, I don't think I should even tell them that those two aren't even fighting seriously. But still, Shiro said. Bakugo looks like a wild animal when fighting. Test area building. With Tenya, we see the boy with his arms crossed. The boy could hear and feel the explosions downstairs. Bakugo-kun is really getting into it, Tenya said. I'm little jealous of his determination though. If that's the case with him, then I must also devote myself to being a villain. That's right. This is another trial to turn me into a man who will not bring shame to the Iida family. Meanwhile, Ochako was hiding one of the pillars in the same room. She was a little cautious because Tenya was a very capable person. But then, become a villain. Be dyed with evil in order to become a hero, Tenya said. I am extremely evil, BWA ha ha ha. Ochako wasn't able to control herself as she let out a snort while trying to hold back her laughter. He's taking this so seriously. Tenya noticed this and turned to face the girl. Have you arrived, Uraraka-kun? Ochako jumped back in surprise, but eventually stepped out from behind the pillar. I knew that Midoriya-kun would send you up here by yourself the instant you encountered Bakugo-kun. Tenya said, pointing to the girl in overdramatic way. Your quirk allows you to make the objects you touch float. That's why, before you arrived, I put away all the things on this floor. Now you won't be able to play your little tricks. You have blundered, hero. Tenya then broke out into maniacal laughter. He's starting to look like a villain, Ochako said. Meanwhile, a couple floors below, Izuku and Katsuki shivered, which ceased their fight for a second. What the was that? Katsuki said. That felt like someone's taking things way too seriously, Izuku replied. The two teens shrugged it off before lunging at one another again. While they fought, Ochako spoke into Izuku's earpiece. Deku-kun. I'm in the middle of the 5th floor, but Iida-kun found me. How's it going down there? I'm not in position yet, Uraraka. Try to hold on a little longer, Izuku said as he gained some distance between him and Katsuki. Okay. I'll keep Iida distracted for a few seconds, Ochako replied. While the teens were distanced, the grenade-shaped gauntlet on Katsuki's right hand glowed red. Good, Katsuki said with a smirk, it's loaded. Wait, don't tell me that thing isn't just for aesthetics? Izuku asked. No, Katsuki said in dangerously quiet tone. You already know that I secrete a nitroglycerin-like sweat from the sweat glands on the palm of my hand and make it explode. Katsuki then pulled back the grenade safety spoon, which revealed a pin. If the support company made this thing the way I asked, then these gauntlets will store my excess sweat inside then, and... Isn't that going a little too overboard? All Might could stop the fight, you know, Izuku asked as put his arms up in defense. I hope he won't. I just wanted to test this thing out on you since you can heal, right? Katsuki said, a crazy grin on his face. If that's the case, then bring it, Izuku said with a wicked grin. Monitor room. Don't tell me that, All Might Sensei, Jiroda yelled as he too noticed the gauntlets. Bakugo Dono is going way too overboard now. There's no way Midoriya Dono's healing factor can survive that. Bakugo Shonen. Wait, All Might yelled. Test area building. But it was too late. Katsuki had already pulled the pin. He'll be alright. Not even this can kill him. Izuku smirked under his face guard as he was caught directly in the middle in the explosion. The blast was so powerful that the tremor it caused was felt even in the monitor room. This is supposed to be a class. What the heck is Bakugo doing? Kirishima yelled. Shonen. Midoriya Shonen. All Might yelled. Back at the test area, a huge dust cloud enveloped the area. But as soon as the dust settled, we see Izuku still standing, his hands were together, and his body was smoldering. Katsuki saw this and clicked his tongue. I thought you were gonna take it. Improvised special move. Shockwave clap. Izuku said, man, I'd be toast if I didn't have this strength-augmenting quirk. That and this fireproof jumpsuit. Upstairs on the 5th floor. Bakugo-kun, answer me. Tenya yelled into his earpiece. Did you do that? What in the world did you do? Explain yourself. This is my chance. Ochako thought as ran in the direction of the bomb. If I retrieve the weapon, we can win. I'll just have to switch to Deku-kun's plan B for now. Tenya noticed this however and ran as well to block the girl. I won't let you, hero. Ochako then touched the tips of her fingers together. As soon as gained weightlessness, she leapt into the air. I just need to touch the weapon itself for it to count as being retrieved. She can make herself float now, too? Tenya asked. In one swift motion, Tenya activated his engines and grabbed the weapon before Ochako could even land on it. She fell and flipped a few times before landing hand on the floor and stopping at a nearby wall. Your quirk is not a threat if you cannot touch anything, Tenya said. I'll hold out until time runs out. He then laughed maniacally. He's too serious about this, Ochako thought. But still, looks like I'll have to wait on Deku-kun if we really want to win. What's taking him so long? Monitor room. Sensei. You should stop them, Kirishima said. That Bakugo's really crazy. He's gonna kill him, regardless of Midoriya's healing factor. Bakugo Shonen. Be glad Midoriya Shonen is alright. But the next time you use that, all the fight and your team will lose. All Might said. To attack on such a large scale inside is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That is a foolish plan for both the heroes and the villains. You will lose points for it. Test area building. Yeah, Katsuki said with a grin. I just wanted to test this thing out anyway. Man, this gauntlet really packs a punch. I'm pissed that you blocked it though. Izuku looked around. I think I'm in a good spot. I just need to bring Kachan here. Okay. I think we should end this. Yeah, we should. Katsuki then lunged at Izuku by way of an explosion from his hands. You first. Izuku thought as he blocked Katsuki's attack. Monitor room. Wait, Jiroda said. Now that I think about it, from their positions, Uraraka Dono is right above where Midoriya Dono is.
What about it? Kaminari asked. Midoriya Dono seems to be lining himself up to his partner location.
You're right. I wonder they're planning test area building.
As Katsuki came in close, Izuku tightened his fist. Sorry Kachan. Time to stop playing around. Izuku blocked 3 of Katsuki's punches but took a roundhouse kick to his left side. Once he was close enough, Izuku focused 5% on OFA in his right hand and punched Katsuki in the gut. The sandy blonde doubled over in pain, but because of his polymer vest, Katsuki was able to stay standing. Izuku then called Ochako over his earpiece. Go to the pillar by the windows and wait for it.
Gotcha, Ochako replied. Over and out. Not so fast. Katsuki growled as he grabbed Izuku's right arm. Using several small explosions, Katsuki, in a couple of swift motions, flipped Izuku around, grabbed him by the left arm from behind and slammed Izuku into the ground.
1 minute and 40 seconds remaining. All Might announced from the speakers. Like I thought, not enough time, looks like I'll really have to do it. Izuku thought as he focused 10% of OFA into his hands. He propelled himself up and rammed his body head first into Katsuki again, headbutting the blonde, but this time with more force. Katsuki growled back a cough as he doubled over in pain. Izuku got to his feet and caught Katsuki with his left arm. He then managed to wrap a long string of capture tape around Katsuki's torso. Uraraka. Now, Izuku yelled. Upstairs, Ochako grabbed onto the pillar that Izuku had told her earlier. Deku. Katsuki strained. Sorry, Izuku said as he focused all 100% of OFA in his right arm and aimed it at the ceiling. Smash. A shockwave then erupted out of Izuku's arm and blasted through the ceiling of the second floor, but the force was so strong that it made its way through the whole building. Upstairs, Iida held onto the weapon as the shockwave blew through the floor. He then saw Ochako picking up the pillar she had been holding onto like a bat. Sorry, Iida-kun. Improvised special move. Comet home run. Ochako yelled as she swung the pillar to bat the debris. The rocks then flew like projectiles over to his side of the room, which caused Tenya cover himself. You call that a home run? Tenya yelled. While the teen was distracted, Ochako jumped using her quirk to float over to the weapon. Release. Ochako said as she landed on the weapon. Retrieved. No. The weapon. Tenya yelled, which echoed all the way down to the second floor. Damn it, Katsuki said as looking up, clutching his stomach in pain. That's what you were planning from the start. No, Izuku replied, looking up as well. We were running out of time, this was a backup plan. In the monitor room, All Might was smirking, but no one could tell since he was always smiling. The students were awed by the shockwave that tore through the building. Hero team wins, All Might announced through the speakers. The sandy blonde grabbed Izuku's shoulder as he fell to the ground, dragging Greenette down with him. You are a certifiable dumbass.
Izuku just grinned as he touched Katsuki's shoulder with his good hand. A faint green light started to glow from Izuku's fingers. Nah, we both are. Ha ha ha. Izuku's other hand was already healing. It slowly turned from an ugly shade of discolored purple flesh to a healthy shade of pink flesh.
TCH. Katsuki scoffed with a smile. Back in the monitor room. Why are they smiling? Hiroshima asked. Midoriya won, but is why Bakugo smiling like that? They had a good fight, I guess. Kyoka said. I've known those two for a while, they like to test their fighting skills on one another. You could probably call this a victory for them both. A battle of the heart between two rivals then. Tokiyami said in a sagely tone. Back in the test area, Tenya was packing over the sight of Ochako rejecting the contents of her stomach again. Later, when the two teams were gathered in the monitor room.
Izuku, Ochako, Katsuki, and Tenya were standing in line. Izuku was holding Ochako's hand. This was to help soothe her stomach pain. The hero team won, All Might said. Well, even if I say that, The MVP for this battle was Iida Shonen. The teen in question gasped in surprise. "It's not the winners, Ochako or Midoriya?" Suyu asked. Well, why is that? Does anyone know?" All Might yelled as he raised his arm. "Yes, All Might Sensei," Momo said, raising her hand. "That is because Iida-san adapted the most to the context of the training."
"Correct," All Might said. From the watching the match, Momo continued. "It appeared that Bakugo-san, even though he and Iida-san orchestrated a plan, acted on his own because of his rivalry with Midoriya-san."
Izuku and Katsuki looked at each other. "Was it that obvious?" Katsuki whispered.
Izuku just shrugged. And as All Might Sensei said earlier, Momo continued. "It is foolish to launch a large-scale attack indoors. In the same way, taking into consideration the damage he caused, Midoriya-san's plan was also rash as it could have caused injuries outside of the building with debris and rocks flying everywhere. As for Uraraka-san, she let her guard down mid-battle, and her final attack was too reckless. If she treated the hollow foe bomb as a real weapon, she would not have been able to do something so dangerous." Iida-san had prepared for his opponent's arrival and assumed it would be a fight over the weapon, which made him late in responding to the final attack.
When he heard this, Tenya could help but smile as he felt an immense sense of pride in being praised. Momo wasn't done yet, however. The hero team only won because they took advantage of the fact that this was training. They were practically breaking the rules. Katsuki and Izuku shared another look. "And I thought your analysis skills were over the top," Katsuki whispered.
Izuku just kept a passive-looking face. "Shish," she said, "more than I expected." All Might thought as he shook, not knowing how to respond to this. Well, Iida Shonen could be more relaxed, but well, that was correct. We should always start with the basics to develop depth of learning. Otherwise, we cannot become top heroes. All right everyone, let's change location and start the second match. Tackle this training after thinking about what we just talked about. All Might said as he drew the next set of hero and villain teams. Yes, sir. The battles went on with the next hero team being Team B and the villain team being Team I. Staring at the pure display of power that Todoroki used to win the match, Izuku and Katsuki glowered at the screen. "That guy's gonna be quite the challenge for us, don't ya think?" Izuku asked. "Yeah, he'll put up one heck of a fight, that's for sure," Katsuki replied. Meanwhile, Momo was blushing up a storm. No one saw this since the room was darkened. In her mind she was chastising herself for saying such things against Izuku. It couldn't be helped, she was just giving her honest opinion about the match, and she hoped Izuku would be mad at her. As the afternoon progressed, Izuku kept taking mental notes of his classmates and their quirks. He noted that Momo and Kyoka worked quite well together by barricading the entrance with steel beams.
Izuku also noted that Jiroda was like a tank, but he needed a driver since his beast quirk would make him give in to his more primal side.
Later, once the battles were all done. "Good work everyone," All Might said as he and students gathered in front of the exit. "We're lucky that there weren't any major injuries, even though you all took this so seriously. You did a really good job for your first training class. To have such a proper class after Aizawa-sensei's class, it's kind of anticlimactic," Suyu said with her classmates all nodding in agreement. Even Katsuki was bobbing his head up and down. "We're free to have proper classes, as well," All Might said. "Well then, I must review the results with the other teachers to decide your grades. Change and return to the classroom," All Might yelled as he broke into a sprint through the exit. Izuku's sweat dropped. I guess he's about to hit his time limit.
"All Might's amazing," Kaminari exclaimed. "Why was he in such a hurry though?" Ojiro asked. They then exited the training area and made their way back to the classroom.
Throughout the day, Izuku got more acquainted with his fellow classmates. They were really impressed by his and Katsuki's martial arts skill and fighting prowess. Despite being admonished by Momo a little, Izuku felt in good spirits as he and Katsuki made a couple of friends that day. As the class ended, Izuku was again bombarded by questions regarding his quirk and fighting skills. The group that surrounded his and Katsuki's desk were making quite a ruckus. "You guys are too loud," Tokiyami said. "Tokiyami-kun," Tenya said as he made his over to the bird-headed teen. "That desk is not a chair. Get off immediately. It's not that big a deal, is it?" Kyoka asked. Tenya flinched. "What's with those hand gestures, anyway?" Ojiro added. "You people," Tenya said. "I cannot condone actions that disrespect the desks the great men and women who are our upperclassmen once used."
"Now you're too loud," Tokiyami said. "That guy never wavers, does he?" Izuku said with a sweat drop. The next day, the media, having heard of All Might being a teacher at UA, were gathered in droves in front of the prestigious school, hoping to get anything they could. Izuku just rolled his eyes as he walked up the gates, but he was suddenly stopped by a reported. "You there, please tell us, how are All Might's classes?"
Izuku inwardly smirked. "Hell do I know, I'm from the business course." The report and the other media team backed away from Izuku like he was a plague. Making his way inside the school, Izuku laughed a little to himself.
"Good work on yesterday's combat training," Aizawa said to his students. "I saw the videos and results. But I'm far from impressed. Bakugo and Midoriya, I'm talking to you too." The brunette and the sandy blonde straightened up at their names being singled out.
"In terms of power, your quirks are the most destructive," Aizawa stated. "I want you two to exercise more control. You're equally talented in the use of your quirks, but please, do us a favor and learn to control yourselves next time, understood?"
The two teens just nodded their heads and replied "Yes, sir."
"Now let's get down to homeroom business. Sorry about the late notice, but today," Aizawa said, "I'll have you decide on a class representative." This announcement was then met with each student wanting to do the job. In a normal class, students might feel like they're just taking on daily duties. But here in the hero course, it's a role that allows one to practice being a top hero by leading a group. From his seat, Izuku was looking around. He didn't particularly want to be a class rep, all he wanted to be was a hero. He felt like duties like this would be nothing more than a waste of time for him. And besides, who'd vote the resident bad boy as class representative? But who knows, it might be fun to boss the others around. "Silence, please," Tenya yelled, which caused the student to suddenly go quiet. It is a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It is not a job for just anyone who wants to do it. It is a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we want to use democracy to decide on a true, then we should hold an election to choose one.
"Your hand is raised the highest," Izuku yelled, accompanied by his classmates.
"Why did you suggest that?" Denki asked. "We haven't known each other for that long," Suyu said. "So, how can we have trust or anything?" "If that's the case, and everyone votes for themselves," Kirishima added. "Don't you think that is precisely why whoever receives multiple votes here can be truly considered the most suitable person?" Tenya explained as he turned for Aizawa, who zipped himself in his sleeping bag. "I don't care, as long as you decide before homeroom is over." The caterpillar said. He fell to the ground in slumber. "Thank you very much," Tenya replied. Izuku looked at Katsuki, who looked back. They then shook their heads. They both knew Tenya was a capable student, but he was way too diligent on everything, if his hand movements were anything to go by.
Later, after the votes were tallied and names were written down.
"What the, how?" Izuku thought as he stared at the blackboard. Underneath his name was Momo's with 2 votes. "No way," Katsuki yelled as he turned to face his green-haired friend rival. "DEKU, how the hell did you get 4 votes? Who voted for him?" "Well, it's better than voting for you," Siro said.
"We'd rather not have a class representative with a shitty attitude," Kyoka said with a smirk.
"Huh," Katsuki growled as he pointed to Izuku. "That doesn't make sense. He's just about the same bad attitude as I am." Izuku smirked and put on his best kind expression. Out of nowhere a halo and a heavenly light suddenly appeared over his head. Kachan, he said, a soothingly sweet voice. This just proves that even though I'm a bad boy, I still have my good points. Tem. Katsuki growled as he sprouted devil horns and a pointed tail. This was followed by a demonic aura surrounding the blonde. Ochako, meanwhile, just stared off to the side while whistling a soft tune. Tenya just sat in his seat upset that no one voted for him and his name wasn't written on the board. 0 votes. I knew that would happen. That is only to be expected of a person's calling. You voted for someone else, huh? Momo said. But you wanted to do it, too. Sato said. What are you trying to do, Iida? Todoroki just closed his eyes. After all that, Izuku and Momo were called to stand in front of the classroom. Then, the class representative is Midoriya, and deputy class representative will be Yaoyorozu. Aizawa said. Izuku let out a sigh. Well, Izuku said as the halo suddenly appeared above his head again. Thanks for voting for me, guys. I'll be sure to live up to the position you put me in.
I shall also do the same. Momo said. This might not be so bad, Suyu said.
After all's said and done, Midoriya can be pretty fired up, anyway. Hiroshima said. And Yaoyorozu was cool when we were going over the battle results. Later at the lunch rush cafeteria. Wow, there's a lot of people here today too. Ochako marveled as she looked around the cafeteria. That's because everyone in the hero course, support course, and business course meets in the same place. This rice is so delicious. Ochako said. You can say that again. Izuku said as he polished off his second bowl of katsudon.
Midoriya-kun, Tenya said. You're eating quite a lot again.
Izuku then let out a sigh. Even though you guys chose me a class rep, I don't know if I'm qualified for it. You are. Ochako replied. It'll be fine. Tenya said. Your courage and judgment at critical moments make you worth following. That's why I voted for you. But didn't you want to be class rep, too, Iida-kun? Ochako said. I mean, you've got glasses and everything. This girl just talks without thinking. I kinda figured that out when I didn't your name on the board, Izuku said. You too, Uraraka. The brunette smiled sheepishly at this. Wanting to do it and being suitable for it are different issues. Tenya replied. I merely did what I judged to be correct. Merely. Izuku and Ochako questioned. You don't usually use that word, Izuku said.
Oh, that's, I've been thinking, Ochako said. You're a rich kid, aren't you, Iida-kun? Tenya flinched. I tried to change the way I talk because I didn't want to be called that. Izuku and Ochako stared. The girl did it out of curiosity while our bad boy did it out of his teasing nature. Tenya sighed. He then explained about how his family had been a hero family for generations and that he was the second son to a pro-hero father. He then went on to describing his relationship with the turbo hero. Ingenium, Tenya proudly said that he was Ingenium's younger brother. This caused Izuku to smile in awe for once. He even described the hero's agency, number of sidekicks, and how the hero was admired and really popular. While they spoke and told each other about their goal for the future, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the school. There has been a level 3 security breach. An automated computer voice announced through the alarm. All students please evacuate outdoors promptly. Hey, Izuku said, grabbing the attention of the student sitting next to Tenya. What's a level 3 security? It means someone is trespassing on school grounds. The student replied. An intruder, Tenya exclaimed. I've never seen anything like this happen in the 3 years that I've been here, you guys should hurry too. The student said as he rushed out of his seat. Due to the alarm, Izuku, Tenya, and Ochako were caught up in a stampede of panicked students. Ow, I'm being squeezed here, Ochako said. What's going on all of a sudden? Hold on, Izuku said as he pulled the girl close and held her safe in his arms. Iida, get to windows, try to see what's going on outside. The bespectacled teen nodded his head and did as he was told. It's the press, Tenya said as he slowly shuffled his way back to his friends. They broke through the UA barrier. Arg, Izuku growled.
What's wrong with them? Izuku looked around and tried to think of something. He then saw the exit sign. Izuku looked to Tenya. Iida, I've got an idea, Izuku said as he motioned to the exit. You thinking what I'm thinking?
Iida nodded. Uraraka, Izuku said. Make Iida float. The girl reached her hand and did as was told. As soon as Tenya was airborne, he lifted up his pant legs and used his engines to propel him toward the exit sign.
Everyone, everything's fine, Tenya yelled, which caught the students' attention. It's just the media. There's nothing to panic about. Everything's fine. This is UA. Let us act in a way befitting the best of the best. This managed to calm everyone down. Izuku let out a sigh of relief as he let go of Ochako. Glad that mess was settled out. Ochako, however, was blushing a little. That's the second time he held me like that. It felt really nice though. Hey, the police are here. One student said. For the rest of the day, classes resumed as normal. In class, they were deciding on the other class officers. Later that afternoon, Izuku was being dragged against his will by the three girls to Wuki's again. Not that he didn't mind, he really enjoyed hanging out with the Ochako, Kyoka, and Momo. But to Izuku, it looked a little awkward just being the only guy in a group. He didn't know what to do or say at times because the girls were being, well, girly. Katsuki wasn't able to join him because of a little brown-haired girl by the name of Bakugo Hanabi, Katsuki's younger sister. FYI, this is mostly the reason why Katsuki isn't such a in this story.
It up Mopi, Kyoka said. We needed a chaperone, remember? Why couldn't Bakahatsu just bring Hanabi along with him, then we'd all be having fun, Izuku said.
He can't remember. You do know what Mitsuki-san would do to Bakugo if that guy ever took Hanabi outside without asking, right? Kyoka said. Izuku shivered at this. He knew, Bakugo Mitsuki was a scary woman at times, especially when it concerned her precious little girl. Okay, let's just not talk about that. I should have called Iida when I had the chance. At least Jiro was there with him. Izuku knew her long enough that he was very comfortable around the dark purple-haired girl. But recently, she was avoiding him a little and clinging onto Momo even more than she usually did. Well, all things they were girls, they tended to bond more than they did with their guy friends. Do I really have friends anymore? Izuku thought as adjusted the present mic-themed headset around his neck. Deku-kun, Ochako said, noticing her friend's mood. Are you alright? Izuku nodded. Yeah, I'm good, I just feel left out as the only guy here. Ochako smiled. Cheer up, at least you're not alone, right? The brunette shrugged. Being alone isn't that bad, but, yeah.
Izuku then thought back to his other friend, Sho.
When the quartet got to the cafe, they were surprised to see that there weren't that many people today. Only about 3 tables were occupied with 2 people per table.
Hey, that's odd. Business is never this slow on a weekend, Izuku said, walking up to the counter.
You get used to it, Midoriya-kun, Magnetron said from behind the counter. Some days are just not your best, you know what I'm saying. Izuku smiled. Yeah, for him, training and improving himself as a hero student was quite the challenge. Even with a healing factor. There were days where he felt like he couldn't do any more, but those were days when he'd be training his stamina's endurance. As they placed and received their orders, the teens then went over to their favorite table by the window. As they sat, Kyoka noticed that Izuku was a little somber. The punk girl sighed internally. She felt little guilty for ignoring her friend, so she decided to actually speak to him. Why the long-faced nerd? She asked in her usually blunt tone. Oh, it's nothing, Izuku replied as he took a sip of his coffee. I was just thinking about Sho. Oh, Kyoka said, nodding her head slowly. Who's Sho? Ochako asked. Momo also leaned in. The tall girl was also curious about this Sho person. She had heard a little about him from Kyoka but not enough to piece together a coherent picture. Setting down his cup looking out window, Midoriya let out a sigh. We used to be a quartet, me, Kachan, Jiru, and another boy named Sho.
We were good friends until a year before we started middle school.
Sho just called us all over the phone one day and said he couldn't be our friend anymore. Kyoka added. After that, we never saw or heard from him again. What was he like? Momo asked. Izuku smiled. He was crazy, just like the three of us. Some years ago, we see 4 kids playing at a playground park. There were 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl was Jiro Kyoka. She was wearing a white deep dope t-shirt and a pair of denim shorts with a pair of pink tennis shoes. We see Midoriya Izuku. He had on a blue t-shirt with an All Might logo on the back. He was wearing a pair of beige shorts and he sported a pair of red running shoes. Bakugo Katsuki was seen wearing a black t-shirt, a pair of dark brown shorts, and a pair of black and red sneakers. We now see the third boy, Sho. He was wearing a light blue t-shirt, a pair of blue denim shorts, a red t-shirt with a similar All Might logo on the front, and on his head was a red, white, and blue All Might theme baseball cap. The cap's bill was shadowing his eyes and you could barely make out his hair. Come to think of it, Izuku said as he looked at Kyoka. None of us ever did see Sho's eyes or hair, right?
Kyoka shook her head. Beats me. All I know is, that guy never took his hat off once when we were playing around. We see the 4 kids running around and playing on a jungle gym. Katsuki had climbed to the top and was egging his friends to climb up as well. He always boasted about how he was better than all of them, but they just took that as a challenge.
As kids, the 3 were very close, but Sho a bit of a mystery. They didn't know his surname, they had no clue about his parents, and they didn't even know which school he went to. But even still, he was a great friend who loved hanging out with them. Sho was better friends with Izuku more than Katsuki, I think you know why, and he treated Kyoka like a sister. The quartet always hung out in the afternoon when school was over, and in the summer they were always seen together just playing, having fun, and in general just having good time. Thanks for watching.